isang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, pero sa sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang lang matawag mo'y tagumpay na nag-iibig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay mag-iibig. Luman ang araw ng walhagin pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang higaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good morning. Welcome to the second day of Pandemic Playbook, the BDAP Literary Festival. This festival is brought to you by BDAP in cooperation with the National Book Development Board, Happy Toothpaste, Daz Dishwashing Liquid, and Prime Trade. I am Annie Almario, President of BDAP. Today, it is my distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker who is known for being cool, witty, funny, and sharp. Our speaker is a fiction writer, columnist, editor, publisher, and former TV and radio show host. Her most popular books are the Twisted series, a collection of her essays as a columnist for the newspaper Today, as well as from her time as editor and publisher of the magazine Flip. This year, our speaker launched her first novel, The Age of Umbrage, and the collected stories of Jessica Zafra, both published by Ateneo de Manila University Press. Let's welcome to the Pandemic Playbook stage, the unique, the unequaled Jessica Zafra.
Good morning from Manila. My name is Jessica Zafra. I am the author of the novel The Age of Umbrage and the collected stories of Jessica Zafra, both of them published by Ateneo University Press. Thank you very much for inviting me. I am going to talk about living in science fiction times. In 2016, it occurred to me that the apocalypse had begun. A little late, since many had expected it at the turn of the millennium. This apocalypse is not the stuff of biblical revelations, at least and thankfully, not literally. It is less spectacular, more life-sized, more plausible, and therefore scarier. It could happen. It's happening. In 2016, all my assumptions about the world were appended one by one. All around the world, far-right populist strongmen were elected not despite, but because of their appeal to the prejudices and hatreds of the people. There have always been demagogues, but we believed that the people would reject them. It turns out that we didn't know the people, and we were horrified at what they believed. Reason became powerless against fear and loathing. Soon it became apparent that it was useless to argue by bringing up facts. They would not change anyone's mind. The very foundation of knowledge, the truth, was under attack. I still recall my bewilderment at hearing the term post-truth. How can supposedly intelligent people believe fake news? How could the truth be ever out of fashion? I felt as if gravity had vanished. We had come unmoored and were in danger of drifting into space. Small wonder that George Orwell's 1984, which many of us had read under duress at school or remembered mainly from that computer ad, became a bestseller. We recognized our present in the words that were written 7 decades earlier. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. If thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. 1984, a science fiction novel had predicted our strange new world, and it was not the only one. Science fiction, which is still shunted off to the genre section and exiled to the fringes of capital L literature, had seen this coming because that's what science fiction does. Meanwhile, climate change continues to escalate, causing more massive catastrophes with each official denial of its existence. Planetary extinction events are on the way, and no number of pretty speeches and eco friendly shopping bags will stop them without concerted global action. Here is something easily capable of fulfilling the worst parts of biblical revelations. It is the stuff of science fiction, and now it is real. At the same time, a disproportionately high number of artists I looked up to were dying. 2016 gave us a rapture like the leftovers scenario, in which the chosen suddenly and inexplicably vanish, presaging some apocalyptic event. David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Gene Wilder, Leonard Cohen, George Michael. When Prince died, I knew the apocalypse was well and truly underway. To punctuate a year of grief, Carrie Fisher, who was back on the screen as the former princess and now General Leia, died. There was nothing more to be said. As the weeks stretched into months and the months into years, it became clear that this was not some weird daymare that we would suddenly wake from. On the contrary, things became even more baffling and incomprehensible. This is how we live now. And I accepted that science fiction is the only literary genre that can explain today's world. I'll interrupt this direness with a cheerful flashback. As a young nerd who did well in school but could not relate to my classmates, I gravitated towards science fiction. My entry point was the original Star Trek TV series, which was airing in endless reruns along with Charlie's Angels and the Donnie and Marie show. These American products were deemed safe by the Marcos martial law government, as was combat, which made it seem like World War II was still being fought by one weary platoon of GIs. I was entertained by the female detectives who emerged from grave danger with perfect hair, and slightly bothered by the brother and sister team singing love songs to each other. But I really wanted to be in the crew of the USS Enterprise. The universe they explored was unimaginably more vast and fascinating than my world of house to school and back. And no matter how often they traveled into the uncharted regions of space, many of their discoveries were about themselves and the mystery of being human. The first science fiction stories I read were novelizations of those Star Trek teleplays by the British writer James Blish. I have never stopped reading science fiction. People who dismiss it as ray guns and aliens assume that you read it to escape reality. There is always an element of escape, even in the most realistic fiction. But in science fiction, the worlds we escape to are often worse than this one. The difference is that the people have the imagination, ingenuity, and intelligence to begin to address their problems. These are usually the very people who are rejected and marginalized by their societies, the outsiders, the heretics, and nonconformists. Science fiction is the voice of the nerds. I hesitate to offer a definition of science fiction because that would mean putting limits on something that should be boundless. For my purposes, I will quote the Yugoslavian critic Darko Suvin, who said, "It is a literary genre whose necessary and sufficient conditions are the presence and interaction of estrangement and cognition, and whose main formal device is an imaginative framework alternative to the author's empirical environment." Consider the 1951 short story by C.M. Kornbluth entitled The Marching Morons. This is its premise. Intelligent people opt to have few or no children, while the less intelligent have plenty of children. So many centuries from now, the world is populated by morons, except for a small, overworked, extremely stressed, intelligent elite who keep it running. Interesting. Did it predict our world today? I should hope not. And anyway, it is too simplistic. We could argue that social media, particularly Facebook and Twitter, have broken democracy. However, they did not turn people into morons. They did not make people bigoted, misogynist, anti science, classist, and callous. However, social media gave them a platform on which they could reveal themselves. And those lowercase r revelations came as a shock to us. We had always assumed that our friends, family, colleagues, the people we grew up with or interact with daily, whom we share histories with, felt the same way we do about basic issues. Basic as in right versus wrong. We realized that we don't really know each other, and maybe we should have stayed oblivious because once we became aware of their opinions on the value of strangers' lives, we could not bear the thought of continuing to know them. This year, we are living through another one of science fiction's greatest hits, a pandemic. Who knew that we would be spending the year indoors? Did you ever imagine that you could kill someone by breathing on them? That the streets could be as empty and quiet as the aftermath of a zombie outbreak? If you had any remaining doubt that we were living in science fiction times, they disappeared the first time you stepped out of your house wearing a mask and face shield and constantly disinfecting your hands. This pandemic has laid waste to the global economy, but it's also shown us what we must do to ensure the survival of the species. We cannot go on the way we have, casually destroying the environment, poisoning ourselves, and allowing a few ridiculously wealthy people to have more than everyone else combined. The carbon emissions that the world's governments have not succeeded in reducing, because economies depend on their ability to spew carbon, were reduced during the worldwide lockdown. There was no choice but to shut down industry. The air became cleaner. Our surroundings were cleaner. We saw what the world looks like if human impact is minimized. We saw that while an invisible, insidious virus had forced us to put our lives on pause, we are the real virus. Obviously, we have to come out of our houses and go to work at some point, but we have to change. If capitalism, industry, travel, and tourism go back to the way they were, and more to make up for lost time and revenue, we will have learned nothing from this catastrophe and are truly, undeniably doomed. Ted Chiang, one of the greatest science fiction authors despite his relatively small output and his not having written a novel, pointed out that there are two kinds of narratives. In the conservative narrative, there is a problem, a disaster, or a war. It's solved and everything goes back to the way it was. The status quo wins. In the progressive narrative, there is a problem, a disaster, or a war. It's solved and nothing goes back to the old normal. Society emerges from the catastrophe fundamentally changed. I would like to think that we are living in a progressive science fiction narrative. What is my basis for saying this? Nothing. I just want to believe. I do not mean this as a criticism of the people who are paralyzed by anxiety during this terrible time and need all their energy to keep it together. So many of us are finding it extremely difficult to read books, much less write them. And that is an understandable reaction to this weirdness. But I have never been particularly sociable, and I am comfortable in the great indoors. I have never read so much or written so much as I do now. Why? Because I can't leave the house physically. I can't travel as I used to, but my mind can. This is the gift of science fiction to every nerd who was ever bullied or alienated. The power to imagine another world, a better world where your intelligence and innovation could make the difference. Recently on Instagram, I had a conversation with a new friend, a wonderful writer who is working on her next book. She said she felt almost guilty about writing fiction and that it felt shallow and self indulgent in the face of awful reality. On the contrary, I think it is in truly awful times that we need fiction even more, not just to escape, which at this point, 9 months into the pandemic, is a form of self care, but to envision a world in which truth, justice, compassion, equality, and art win. Because if we can imagine it, maybe we can will it into being. I will remind you that our nation was imagined into being by a young man who poured his rage, his disillusionment, and his wicked humor into the tale of a man who just wanted to open a school. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Welcome to our first panel for the second day of Pandemic Playbook, the BDAP Literary Festival. Thank you once again to BDAP's partners in this event, the National Book Development Board, Happy Toothpaste, DAS Dishwashing Liquid, and Prime Trade. Our panel for today is entitled Survival Book Design, Designing for and Amidst the Coronavirus. I'm Annie Almario, BDAP President, and your moderator for this morning's panel. Featured in this panel are two well-known book designers. The first panelist is artist and designer Karl Castro. His book designs have won several National Book Awards, and Karl has mounted exhibitions, solo exhibitions at the Ayala Museum and Vargas Museum. He's currently a lecturer at the Ateneo de Manila University Department of Fine Arts. Karl is also a member of Giant Dwarf Art Space and Concerned Artists of the Philippines. Our second panelist is R. Jordan P. Santos, Art Director for Anvil Publishing. His work can be found emblazoned on book cover designs or behind the scenes on art-directed publications. After Karl and Jordan speak, we will go into a Q&A session. So for those watching us through Facebook or YouTube, you can put your questions and comments on the comments part section. Let's begin with our first panelist. Ready ka na ba, Jordan?
Annie, naririnig ba ako?
Yes.
Okay. Ready na ba ako? Yes.
Kaya mo yan, Jordan.
Ako ba yung mag-share screen na?
Go for it.
Please do.
So, good morning everyone. We are going to talk about survival book design, designing for and amidst the coronavirus. I'll be starting, but I want to mention that the designing for part is going to be Karl, and I will be the and amidst part. The coronavirus is still the coronavirus. And ito ang itsura niya, and it could probably be called the image of the year. For us to talk, I think it's important to talk about beginnings. Kailan ba siya nagsimula? Do you remember March 12, 2020? It was a Thursday. MECQ was declared. It was called Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine. It had the end of the world vibes. There was panic buying. But what does it exactly mean? It said that it means partial lockdown in Metro Manila starting midnight on March 15. Mass transportation to continue with social distancing. Businesses allowed to operate with 50% of their employees on site. Government offices will still operate with a skeleton workforce. Classes suspended. And according to one of those famous comic strips online, this is fine by Casey Green. So, moving on, March 16, 2020, Monday, the week after, 1 day of MECQ implementation. It was declared na we're gonna have ECQ, Enhanced Community Quarantine. What does it mean? Total lockdown in Metro Manila. Mass transportation to not continue. Businesses not allowed to operate with 50% of their employees on site. Work from home should be considered. Government offices will do work from home and operate with skeleton workforce. Classes suspended. Same. What does it mean for the book industry? Work from home and a skeletal crew setup for all companies was considered. No brick and mortar sales. no ISBN application, considering that the National Library is a government office. And even though they said that they would have a skeleton crew, there was no ISBN application. And for the book industry, we were considered category 3. So it means halt of all publishing and printing activities. So, is this fine? According to Casey Green, he revised his comic strip and he said, this is not fine. But what does it mean for book design? Book development continued up to preparation of final art. Here's an example of a book development schedule. And halted tayo from digital proof, printing, distribution, marketing. Although marketing continued out later on online, the other thing to consider is printers were closed. I want to point this out because book design should not end after working in front of the monitor. Book design can be considered to continue during the press, during press checks, technicolors, and even the running. Another thing is exploration of ebook development. Remember this, the book development process. We kind of added something for ebooks, which is conversion, editing, and uploading. The next thing is online design considerations with design. Remember this, spines. Consider the spines when we put our books on the shelves. But with online selling, we had to consider what our books look like when they are thumbnails. Are the titles readable? Are the images seen? Can they be seen? Can they pop out amidst all the thumbnails? What does it mean for book designers? Work from home adjustments. So for freelancers, actually work from home is welcome to my world. Parang wala raw nagbago sa kanila when it happened. But like the album The Cranberries, everybody else is doing it, so I can't read. Overall, for designers, the feeling was energy not spent to drive commute, 1.5 hours to work, then another 1 to 1.5 hours back home, if you're lucky. Designers can work with less interruptions. So these are the pros, but of course, there are also cons. Less interactions with the team. Designers work with home interruptions. It really depends on your setup at home. If you can have your private time or private space. And instead of showing and telling, instructions have to be typed down or Zoom. The other thing, book designers had to consider was job uncertainty, both for in-house and freelance designers. Sacrifices are made for the company, by the company. And longer payment scenarios or no payment at all. So these three things, they are being handled by the companies on their own way. And it's really what you would say, definitely the darkest timeline. But sinasabi nga nila, padayon lang. And what I can say, what designers are doing is survival book design nga tayo, di ba? So we try to survive. For me, the motto is things are not okay, but let us try to finish things. Or you would say, things are not okay, but let us try to design things. How? Communication. So we were introduced to all this stuff like Zoom, Viber, Telegram, Trello, or all for the sake of communication. Community. I would like to share something by Ivan Reverente. He's a Manila-based artist and graphic designer. He mentioned something. May time of day na nagbi-video call kami para magkamustahan, pero most days parang gumagawa ng sabay-sabay. He's talking about Zoom conferences, wherein he would try to get in touch with other artists from Ilustrador ng Kabataan and just to be there and no need to talk, just to have the presence online. It also makes you wonder, what would Benedict Anderson think of online group chats as new units of communities right now? Ivan Reverente, Ivan actually also had the time to still design a cover with me with Likhahan. This is coming soon. Another thing to consider is advocacy. I got to talk with Victor Denistino Nierva. He is a Camarines Sur-based writer, translator, and designer. He said, my language advocacy, magbikol kita, poured in all resources and efforts to and stop designing. He also organized and supervised countless of designers from various language groups para sa COVID response. Yan yung pinakamaganda at pinaka-fulfilling outcome. He also had time to design books despite of things. Joan Medrano, a Baguio-based artist, teacher, designer, also went to art and designed some face masks for helping out advocacies. She was also able to make time to design books. And then care packages. During the pandemic, this is a concept wherein we try to get in touch with people by sending them packages. With me, I would try to reach out to people and say hi and how are you with sending them pandesal to grab and lalamove. And despite everything, during the pandemic, things kind of went back to normal. And because of that, Anvil, where I work from, still managed to come up with books. And I just want to present to you guys our pandemic babies. And placing these covers for my presentation kind of surprised me that despite everything, we were still able to manage to come up with books. Maraming salamat from Mikey, Miro, and Miso.
Thank you, Jordan, for that presentation. Parang hindi ako nakakuha nung care package na pandesal,
Coming
pero
soon.
mamaya na natin pag-usapan. Okay, si Karl
Ako
muna.
nakakuha.
Okay. Thanks, ah.
Sorry, can't sit with us. Joke, hindi. Okay. Okay, good morning everyone. Wait, let me share screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay. And there we go. Hi, so welcome from Adobe Acrobat. Okay, so as Jordan mentioned, things aren't fine, but we have to figure out how to design anyway. So ako naman, I'll share my experience. So I guess my three talking points today would be, what's the value of editorial design given the pandemic and our situation, which is more than the pandemic? What's the value of art in general? And what can we say about the stamina of the designer? Yan. Okay. So first, I guess so designing for the pandemic, I want to emphasize one case study which I did on March 16, 2020, so very early during the lockdown. I was part of a multi-sectoral initiative called Cure COVID, or Citizens Urgent Response to End COVID-19. So this was established because we felt that we needed a community-based, people-led response to COVID-19. Lalo na as we can see during the early parts of the pandemic and even until now, yung mga solusyon ay hindi necessarily medical, kundi like militar and draconian. Our IATF is not led by health experts but by former generals. So yun. So I designed the visual identity for this initiative. It was quite time pressure and everything stress. So the C is actually representative of the particles of the COVID virus that is breaking down. So these are samples of the materials that we made. As you can see, the visual language is very rounded. So that goes into the type choice and the visuals. The color scheme is quite warm, and the type is very friendly, which is a contrast to, for example, official DOH or LGU material. So my main idea here was that we should not be alarmist. We should not lead people to panic. We should be talking in a friendlier tone. So that's how I designed these materials. Kept these in mind. We also created a primer na Tagalog, which was this had to be designed with very specific considerations. Na it should be very cheap to produce, very quick to produce. So in general, for a lot of the Cure COVID materials, we used a lot of free stock imagery because there was no time to really like illustrate it. So dito tumingkad sa akin yung necessity of like these free stock libraries, which are very useful. And then this was black and white, and this was like this was able to be photocopied or printed. Ayun. So the messaging was from the very start na a message of strength na matatalo natin yung coronavirus, that we don't have to be so scared of it, but we have to be careful. Okay. And doing these things, syempre hindi ko na-predict kung ano yung mga mangyayari. So one thing that really surprised me was that in communities, they actually made these Manila paper size versions, hand-drawn, of the pamphlet which we made. And they really ginaya nila pati yung illustrations, yung layout. So it was very interesting for me because I've never experienced that. Okay, so these are by Gabriela in Navotas. So even young people are reading from the pamphlet para mabasa, ay marinig talaga ng mga taga-komunidad. Yan. So this is another one. So yun. So sa akin, I guess the simplicity of the layout and the clarity of the design was able to translate even without my actual design being printed. And ganun. It still looks like the same design. So that for me is interesting as an example of brand and visual identity, I guess, na even if it's hand-drawn, it still retains the essence of the material. Okay. In our pamphlets, we summarized quickly people-centered demands, the first of which is yun nga, solusyon medikal, hindi militar. Okay. And in subsequent pamphlets, it was a challenge for me to choose what to visualize. There was very limited space. So here you can see us visualizing how to flatten the curve, what the concept of a curve is, and on the lower part, what a swab test looks like na masakit siya sa ilong. So partly may panakot factor na if you're not careful, you will have to do this test. Parang ganun. Kasi people don't know what a swab test is. Right? This other slide is us trying to illustrate what physical distancing is and how droplets spread. So, yun. And I feel like, again, these are concepts which are new and must be quickly understood. At the same time, medyo mahirap din siya kasi not everyone had access to like scientific education, or especially now in many communities, we don't have the luxury of space to have physical distancing. So it's still a challenge until now. And this is the last image in one in our second pamphlet. So dito, our messaging was clearly, aside from relief and helping give aid to communities, there was also the call alongside na check uh, where our taxes, our funding is going, if aid is really getting to everyone, and um, asserting to the government our needs. So these are two different but twin um, duties during the pandemic. Na for me, malinaw, kailangan mailapat dapat sa messaging. Kasi usually ang lumalabas lang ay relief, but relief is just a band-aid solution and there needs to be more systematic solutions. Yan. I put this in contrast with um, the visual identity and design that came from the national government. So we were a citizen-led initiative with no budget at all, and we cobbled it together. But that doesn't mean you can't design uh, good output. Meanwhile, these our lawmakers had all the resources available, and this is what they can come up with. This kind of messaging, which is very arrogant from my perspective, na parang kasalanan pa nung taong bayan, parang ganun. These are also examples of PNP materials which came out in social media during the pandemic. So again, as of now, the the bonuses and pay of our policemen have been released, but the hazard pay of our frontliners have not been released. And the policemen also enjoyed an increase in their salaries. So ito yung messaging nila na hindi protesta ang sagot. We need your help, not your protest, as if protest was not necessary or even justified. I'd end this section with this again, another PNP design na makikita yung empathy, yung heart behind the design translates into how it looks. Not just the aesthetics. I mean, of course, we can debate on the aesthetics of it, but the messaging is clear. In this time of crisis, if you cannot help, quarantine your mouth, diba? As if freedom of expression and speech was not enshrined in our human rights, and as if our demands were not legitimate. Yun. So yun, that's just something I want to point out. So to sum this section up, information is vital aid in itself. We always think na aid comes in like noodles, bigas, gamot, but actually information and the ability to understand the crisis is a very important thing. And as designers, we play a huge role in how we communicate, not just the information, but also the heart behind it. So I guess like most designers, sa sobrang stress, I turned to art, of course, as escapism. So I watch a lot of Netflix and movies. So this is me watching Record of Youth, K-drama. I didn't really watch K-drama, pero during the pandemic, I fell into that spiral. So that's an indicator of how terrible things were. So yun. So I think during this pandemic, art kasi was classified as non-essential. Diba? We can't have these museums were shuttered, libraries were shuttered, galleries were shuttered, no performances were allowed. So people still think that art is like not essential, walang pera dyan, parang ganon, may ganong thinking. But now during the pandemic, I think everyone who has not, parang sino ba sa atin ang hindi nakinig sa kanta, nanood ng pelikula or TV series, and these are all artists' works. At the same time, bukod sa escapism, I felt that it was also a form of confrontation, of confronting our realities. So, um, nung pandemic, I was very fortunate to watch the Ang Docu, which is a festival of Philippine documentaries. And these were documentaries from throughout our 100 years of film history in the documentary format. And I felt that just watching these and listening to the discussions was really a form of confronting our reality and also historicizing saan nanggaling yung sitwasyon natin, bakit ganito yung sitwasyon natin. It's not that obvious, but it's there. Okay. And this one naman, this slide is me watching Forbidden Memory, which is a documentary on the Palimbang massacre, a massacre of Moro people during martial law, and it was made public by Cinema One. So I felt like these initiatives to make audiovisual archives accessible was also really important, and I feel like the pandemic helped put it in the online sphere, which I think should continue even after the pandemic. Um, as a member of Concerned Artists of the Philippines, we also held a lot of fundraisers and relief operations. So this is an image I painted of my sanitizing materials, which was part of Sining at Kalinga Lockdown Art Fundraiser. So we raised funds for artists in need kasi 'di ba I'm sorry. Artists had no income during the pandemic. A lot of artists were in need. At the same time, we also raised funds for medical frontliners. Yun. Um, that was in June, and until now, this naman is a print, one of three prints that I made available as part of Alternative Help, which seeks to support Waves for Water. So these are water filtration systems naman na portable, which will be supplied to typhoon-stricken areas. So if you're interested, you can check out alternativehelp.ph. So a lot of um, illustrators and photographers have contributed to this endeavor. Yun. So patuloy yung art, hindi lang siya escapism or confrontation, kundi we actually also provide relief. Ako rin as a member of CAP, I help volunteer along with many others in our organization to really deliver relief to typhoon-stricken communities. So yun. So to sum up this section naman, when we say art is not non-essential, that's not true. Artists provide relief both in tangible and intangible forms. We respond not just to the physical needs, but also to the needs of the deeper needs, like soul needs. Ganyan. Okay. The last part, I guess, is a little more hopeful. So these are um, pandemic babies then. So coming from an independent uh, vantage point, uh, I'm not really fully employed by one particular publisher like Jordan. So from my point of view, ito siya. So una, yung A Library PH, they started putting out zines during the pandemic. So this was established August 2020. So I think it's quite brave to establish a publishing endeavor amidst all of this, but here they are doing it. Okay. So you can order zines and prints under them. Another one is Books, established by Paolo Tiausas. So he aims to provide a platform for authors with self-published books. So this is via Shopee. Okay. So the first books that he sold were his own poetry books, but he now carries other titles. And he also made special ano ba, prizes, I guess, or considerations to students. So he gave free copies to a limited number of students. Again, it's very brave to put out these kinds of things. So sabi nga ni Jordan, we try to survive, we try to endure, and we try to keep things going and adjust. Kasi mahalagang libro, hindi siya nawawalan ng saysay kahit na ganito yung sitwasyon natin. For concerned artists of the Philippines, we put out several zines. So these are photocopied naman. One talks about extrajudicial killings ng mga activists, which all of these five people on the front, they come from different areas in the Philippines, and they were all murdered during the pandemic. So you would think na despite the situation and social distancing and urgent health concerns, these campaigns would abate, but they did not. Okay. And the other zine is about the resurgence of dictatorship, which was released nung to commemorate martial law noong September 21. For my own practice, I was able to come up with just a few books. It was very hard to design and focus on InDesign and laying out. It was really hard. Parang I felt na the monitor was just stifling. So this is a forthcoming book cover from UP Press called Digmaan ng Mga Alaala by Lawrence Marvin Castillo. So this book was actually not done digitally. So I actually printed out on paper bags, recycled paper bags, yung design, and then I burned them in my bathroom and took pictures. So I still tried to make things with my hands. I felt that that was very important, the act of creation, to keep my sanity. Yun. So that's forthcoming. Um, and another pandemic project is a new book by Ricky Lee. Kulang na Silya at iba pang kwentong buhay. So you can actually pre-order this right now. So these are essays on life and writing, mostly in relation to his writing workshops, but also partly as a response to the pandemic. But for every triumph like what I share, there are also people who are not lucky enough to enjoy those same privileges of creation. So one example is Bad Student Press. So my friends at Bad Student Press, they're the first risograph art studio in the Philippines. So they encourage risograph as a venue for artistic creation. So during the typhoon, they lost everything. They're based in Marikina, and sorry. So during the typhoon, they lost everything. So they share a live and work space, and this was the second floor of their headquarters. So ganun kataas yung baha. They initially they evacuated to the second floor, but they realized that the windows there was no escape route, so they were trapped. And their risograph machines, their bookbinding materials, their papers, everything were in the first floor, and they weren't able to save any of them. That also includes their archive of prints made by fellow artists. And this was just days before they were supposed to represent the Philippines at Tokyo Art Book Fair virtually. So it's very sad. I mean, many of us are lucky enough to survive these disasters relatively unscathed, but that doesn't go for everyone. Okay, why does my okay? So, ayan. So the state of my endeavors under lockdown is like this. Parang people might think that I was very productive, or maybe even the book industry as a whole was very productive. Na okay lang naman, things are okay, we're doing okay, we're adjusting well. This whole Lit Fest, for example, we were able to mount a Lit Fest despite the situation. Pero what people don't see is what didn't make it. And there's so many things that did not make it, that did not survive. Ako, ang dami ko ring books na hindi nagawa, na late. So I'm sorry po kung nanonood kayo ngayon. Parang ganun. So much things didn't make it. So the narrative of resilience is something we have to reimagine. So this is artwork by Tarantadong Calvo. Tama naman na maging resilient tayo. Of course, it's natural for us to try and make it through things. But there's a limit to what we must endure. We shouldn't endure certain situations, and we have to resist and change that narrative. Ganun. So yun, I guess I'll end my presentation with this image by a photographer named Abelardo Morel. So he's a Cuban American photographer, and this is a book damaged by water, and we see beauty in it. It's a very mysterious object, but I guess it doesn't. It's a conflicting situation. How do we feel about it? Do we feel good about surviving? Yes, we should, but do we also feel bad about what things we're tolerating that we shouldn't tolerate, or those people who didn't make it as well as we did? Yun. I think it's something we all have to think about. Right. So, my last point would be exhaustion, disaster, and the deep uncertainty of our situation take a toll on not just practitioners like me individually, but also whole creative practices. Like right now, I'm sure book design is teetering on a very delicate platform. What's gonna happen? Ayun. So I'd end it with a slide from my plant. So this is one of my favorite um, succulents, which I had to put inside because of the storm. Bakali pa rin. Yun. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Karl. Thank you, Jordan and Karl, for such insightful presentations. We'd like to remind the audience that you can type in your questions on YouTube or Facebook, so we can ask Jordan and Karl. Pero bago natin tignan yung mga questions ng audience, ako ay may mga tanong din. Pinakita ni Jordan kanina na naglabas pa rin yung anvil ng libro ngayong pandemic, at parang iba yung considerations kung alam nating i-review yung books natin online, di ba? Before they are. Is that different, seeing it on an online shelf than a physical shelf? What do you both think? Are there considerations in design that you made because you knew that your book designs this year would be seen on a website first, or maybe only? Jordan?
What I notice is it's something na nababanggit na, wherein editors would say na pwede bang lakihan ang title kasi pag thumbnails hindi na siya nakikita. It's something that wasn't considered before, but as a designer and an art director, I would consider it, but it's just one of the things na I would think about overall. Kasi marami ka pang bagay na i-consider. Another thing na encounter ko is if you're coming up with covers na white background lang, the usual problem is how it would pop on usually white background websites, and you have to have an extra step to make it pop out from the white.
Yeah.
How about Karl?
For your
Have you
white cover,
considered
Karl?
anything?
Yeah, yung white cover was really a cost consideration. I tried to make the book still look elegant and beautiful despite being black and white kasi matipid.
Ang ganda.
Yung nga yung naisip ko.
Ay,
It's
thank
like
you.
black lang.
Yan. Pero to answer the question, I think these considerations naman are not unique to the pandemic, but they catalyzed it kasi matagal na naman yung since lumabas yung ebooks, covers have been increasingly designed for the thumbnail, which means it has to be small. So para siyang Instagram parang life has to be more colorful, more attention grabbing, more graphic yung shapes. So I'm sure for a few years now you've noticed that book covers have these huge texts and they're usually centered and they're set against like a very colorful backdrop. So that's already a symptom of designing for a web platform na maliit lang siya. Nabanggit din ni Jordan do sa slideshow niya na the spine is no longer as important. And for me, I love designing for spines. So that's something I kind of miss. Um, Another thing is the actual
Sana may site na gano'n, Carl. View the spine. 'Di ba kasi
spines
lagi
lang.
view the first chapter or read the
Th-
first chapter.
That's true. And usually you can't see the back of the book or the
Right.
spine.
Oo.
Yes.
So
Which is
yun,
also designed, 'di ba? The back of the book
design.
is also designed. Yeah.
Yes. And it's part of the experience kasi a lot of the information you need um, is dapat nasa likod. Parang ganun. To check kung okay ba yung libro for you or not. Yun. Another thing is really designing the insides kasi since ebooks are also on the rise, the static nature of the page is no longer as prevalent. Kasi syempre with ebook readers you can adjust the font size to your desires. So yun.
Na-encounter mo na ba, Carl, ang term na reflowable for your design? Reflowable
Since
text.
since I'm a print designer, I have avoided reflowable designs. Parang I could study actually ebooks. I mean, I'm sure I can do it. You use the same software to make it, pero it's not that interesting to me the experience. So I leave it to other experts to figure that out. Pero for me, yan, kunyari, the Ricky Lee book, for example, if you purchase it, you'll notice that it's not flowing in the same way like prose usually flows. Parang we chopped it up into little bits. And I think
Mm.
that experience will be lost with that idea of reflowable text. So interesting yung digital medium kasi it opens new ways. I mean, you can even embed videos or have animated elements in a book design if you want. But there are also limitations like you don't know anymore where you are
Mm-mm.
in the book, 'di ba? Parang if you're reading 300 pages, if you're
Yeah.
holding a physical book, you know where you
Oo.
are, pero
Oo.
dito parang wala. Ganun.
Siguro mamamatay na 'tong character na 'to, gano'n, 'di ba? Kasi may
Mm,
alam mo na, eh, konti na lang, eh, oo.
yeah.
May
Tsaka
progress indicator ka.
Tsaka also I guess the capability of people to process long, difficult texts
Mhm.
nawawala rin kasi
Mm.
people prefer video or short shareable quotes instead of the full text with context. Parang ganun.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, well, because I personally know both of you as being anything but apolitical. Have you noticed have you noticed that during this whole pandemic, some of your some artists and designers, or more artists and designers, are becoming more political and confrontational with their art? Parang naudyok ba sila ng pandemic, yung friends ninyo or mga acquaintances sa design world na previously ay parang di naman talaga nakikisabak sa ganyang larang. Napansin nyo ba yon?
Hmm.
Go
Yes.
Jordan. Oh.
Yes. Yes. I thank you.
Meron din kasing 'di ba, umiiwas
Ay,
dahil
Oo.
napagod. May gano'n din, 'di ba? Yung matagal nang nakasabak sa ganyan, sa art
mm,
as a political act.
okay.
Tapos napagod din ngayong pandemic, parang na-push talaga ng sobra-sobra.
For
That's
me, from
true.
my observation, oo, marami talaga naging outspoken during the pandemic. I think it's not really because of the pandemic, although again, the extreme situations force people to let go of certain inhibitions that they used to have. But
Mhm.
there is still that strong prevalent notion that an artist shouldn't be that political. I mean, we saw it nung ABS-CBN shutdown, for example, na even their own artistas were not speaking out about it. Ganun kalala yung sitwasyon na kahit na yung kabuhayan mo na yung nakasalalay, you would still
Mm.
not speak out.
Mm.
And even before that, you would also not try to understand because you'd rather be lost in entertainment or other concerns
Mm.
instead
Mm.
of trying to understand our political and economic situation. But
Mm.
I think during the pandemic then, ang dami ko rin nakitang friction between older and younger artists. I guess the older artists already had a kind of fatigue sa activism in general. Na they
Mm-hmm.
feel
Mm-hmm.
na protest is not something you should waste your time on. Parang there are other
Mm-hmm.
ways, like for example, making books is a better alternative to just making
To
protest
marching in the
material.
streets. Mm-mm.
Oo, pero sa akin kasi bakit pinagbabangga yung hindi magkabangga? Pwede mo naman gawin pareho.
Mm-mm.
The books won't save us. People will save us. So it's our job to make better books that will actually better enlighten people. At the same time, we should do these physical things kasi we have to make our presence felt, and it's not books that will jump off the shelves, and convince Congress, for example, to enact certain things. Yeah, parang ganun.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So I feel like the young generation is coming to terms with that, and we're increasingly seeing very colorful, very fresh ways of making their positions known, and for me, it's very exciting then. So that's something as a very silver, grayed out silver lining sa pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing with the pandemic is, like with everything, issues on design has been much more emphasized. So, matagal na nga silang nandyan, yung mga issues, mga concerns. But because of what we're currently going through, mas na-amplify siya. And
Mm-mm.
yes, mas naging outspoken ang mga ilang tao. And it's good kasi I could say that the continuing challenge for art is for people not to think that art is not political.
Mm-hmm.
Art is political,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a ongoing thing, and kailangan lang talaga na ma-emphasize natin. And of course, you also have to consider that not all people are vocal online. A lot of people would, protest and do things their own way.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Agree.
Yeah, hindi social media lang yung only avenue,
Yes.
'di ba?
Yes.
Oo.
In fact, I think these materials should lead people to an offline solidarity.
Mhm.
That's true.
Mhm. Yeah.
May kanta nga si Jess Santiago na may lyrics na aktivista lang sa social media. Pero
Talaga?
Yeah,
people
that's
would
true.
say being an activist only on social media is better than not being an activist at all.
Yeah,
Mhm.
true.
And I think that's also a challenge for young designers who are experiencing a kind of political awakening during this pandemic na palalimin yung understanding and really look for like-minded individuals and really look at ano ba yung sitwasyon, for example, ng mga magsasaka, ng mga nasa coastal areas, ng mga manggagawa na at the front lines of the pandemic, di ba? For example, yung one of the main issues na lumabas early on in the pandemic was the situation of contractual workers sa mga groceries, sa mga ospital. That's concrete. We have to know about it. We can't just post about it. We have to find out their situation and we have to meet them.
Pero
Parang
tama ka, Karl. Kailangan palalimin. Kasi minsan din parang nakikisigaw. Hindi naintindihan yung sinisigaw, di ba?
yes, agree.
Kailangan authentic din yung empathy mo for issues.
Yeah.
Okay, tungkol saan nga ba tong panel na to? Okay, let's go to our Facebook questions. Your fans have questions. Carla Gaudi asks, if you are going to choose a color to best describe 2020, what color would that be and why?
Oh, well, for me, the easiest question is nasagot na siya because Pantone has their official 2020 color, which is royal blue.
Mhm. I would choose
And-
face mask blue.
Ayun, that's true. That's true.
Anong shade ba ng blue yon? Yung light na blue, no?
Parang sky blue, yes.
Parang sky
Parang
blue.
ano siya, 20% cyan.
Oo.
Yeah, between 20 and 30.
that would be the color of the year. Si Luis Silvestre asks, what makes a book cover catchy or unique for readers in this time of the pandemic? Medyo nasagot niyo yan, no? Na ngayon dahil alam mong online,
Ah,
usually ang pagbebentahan ay kailangan maganda pa rin siya kahit thumbnail siya.
okay. Ako,
Pero are
I'll
there
add to
other
that.
things that you consider? Yes, Carl.
Right now we can't depend on the cover itself to sell the book or to catch the attention. You have to create a campaign around it. So especially kung social media, it has to be a conversation. So you have to make it as interactive and engaging as you want. The cover won't hold information, it's a thumbnail. So you can create videos about it, you can have the author or the publisher or other people speak out about it. Parang ganon. You have to design with that
Mm-mm.
in mind. How do you actually
Mm-hmm.
tell people what's happening? And in this age where you can easily scroll through your feed, a cover won't do it. You have to converse. And that
Mm-hmm.
means creating different kinds of materials beyond the cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that also brings the importance of marketing when it comes to our books, wherein design doesn't stop nga rin with just the book. It has to go with the campaign that yung ipinapalibot mo dun sa libro.
Mm-mm.
So,
Mm-mm.
the design of the book should be seen through all the social media materials. So, there's this concept of alignment of design pagdating
Mm-hmm.
sa
Mm-hmm.
libro.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Sa akin
And
naman,
there
it's not
should be
really
a holistic view of the book, 'di ba? When we bring it to market, there's a whole campaign around it. Sorry,
yeah.
Carl, kinat
Sige,
kita.
okay lang. For me, yung concerns ko, it's really not enough marketing framework, but really more a discursive framework. Na of course we want to sell, but we also partly want to sell because we care about the topic that the book tackles. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do we need to do to actually engage that topic? For example,
Mm-hmm.
parang ganon. So, for children's books or for novels, how do we engage that topic? Anong ang mga angulo yung pwede nating gawa ng conversations? Yun. And for me, that's really how I think.
Yeah. There's another question from Shell Webisano. Do you have advice for developing IECs, both for print and online?
Mm, okay.
Ano yung
Uh,
IEC? Sorry.
IECs are
IEC,
informational.
information, education, communication. So parang leaflets, brochures, videos. Usually ginagamit siya for government information
Yes.
campaigns.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my advice would be accessibility for one. I mean, make it available for one thing. So, for example, the CDC of the United States, they have an Unsplash account where they upload images, official images of various health related images. So, yun, just making it accessible for everyone, making the basic data available is already a big thing. And then making it easily navigable is another thing. Usually
Mm-hmm.
kasi nauuna yung aesthetic concerns when actually for me, it should work first. And doing these simple things um, like making raw data available is important. But second is really um, making it conversational, summarizing the key points into one sentence, things na madaling maintindihan, parang ganun.
Mm-mm.
And not using jargon, using
Mm-mm.
everyday language, even informal language if necessary. Parang ganun.
Siguro Carl na-challenge kayo nung naglabas kayo ng leaflets tapos ang haba ng text 'di ba?
Oo, ang haba tsaka
Kasi
ang
kailangan mo
komplikado.
ipaliwanag. Oo, oo.
Oo, like how do you explain the difference between the two kinds of tests na yung isa hindi ganun ka-reliable, yung isa mas
Mm-mm.
reliable,
Mm-mm.
parang ganun. So,
Mm-mm.
komplikado siya, but you have to find ways to to try and explain it in the simplest way possible. At the same
Mhm.
time, you also have to give people the agency kind of take these elements and um, remake them in their own way.
Mm-mm.
Na sila yung, kunyari, if they will be the ones communicating to their group, they will use these materials differently. So you have to make it a little more interactive or dynamic in that way na pwede nilang i-tweak yung
Mm-mm.
materials to their use. Like for
Yeah, and
example, if they
like
have
yung
to
sa
say it
Manila
in their own
paper.
language, oh, like sa Manila paper na
Yeah, ang
hindi pala pwedeng
empowering.
ipamigay, parang ganun. And these
Tama.
are things that
Oo.
Regarding
you have to keep in
pala,
mind.
regarding nga sa binanggit ni Karl na accessibility, kailangan rin accessibility sa design. Parang in-explain nga ni Karl doon sa mga ginawa niya, mga fonts na madaling basahin
Mm-hmm.
and madali siyang ma-print and all. So parang like with all design, you have to consider your target audience. You have to consider your medium. And from there, parang an informed design always would work well.
Mhm. And
Mm-hmm.
to add to that, I think the challenge for the creative community here is to really beef up these open source materials, mga images, icons, photographs, texts na fonts na free for everyone to use. Kasi I think yun yung pinaka-empowering na as designers, we always think na tayo yung may kakayahan to make these materials, but really we have to let people make their own materials. That's the most
Right.
empowering thing we can do as designers, is
Mm.
to let go of our monopoly on design and let
Yes.
everyone design.
Yeah, to democratize it.
Mhm.
Okay, that was a very engaging panel, I must say. We have reached the end of our time. Thank you, Karl and Jordan. Thank you din sa audience na nanood kay Karl at Jordan. Do stick around for the next panel at 10 a.m. on paneling and politics. Feeling ko may mako-continue na discussion discussion lines
That's
from
true.
this
Exciting.
panel. Yeah. The next panel will feature Manix Abrera and Emiliana Kampilan, and it will be moderated by Paulo Heras. Again, BDAP would like to thank our partners in this LitFest, the National Book Development Board, Happy Toothpaste, DAS Dishwashing Liquid, and Prime Trade. We'd also like to invite everyone to see the books, see and buy the books that Karl and Jordan have designed so masterfully. Some of them are available on the Manila International Book Fair site, manilabookfair.com. Get the biggest discounts on the best books. Again, thank you and see you at our next panel.
Okay, so it seems I'm live. Good morning, everyone. and welcome to Pandemic Playbook, the BDAP Literary Festival. This festival is brought to you by the Book Developers Association of the Philippines in cooperation with the National Book Development Board, Happy Toothpaste, Daz Dishwashing Liquid, and Prime Trade. Okay, so I'm just waiting for my special guests today. All right, we have Emiliana Kampilan and Manix Abrera. Good morning, guys. Thank you for being.
Good morning.
It's so nice to see you all. Parang totoong tao, no? from the lockdown. Okay.
Oo nga.
So, good morning, everyone. Our panel for today is entitled Paneling Politics. I am Paulo Heras, BDAP trustee, and your moderator for this morning's panel. Featured in this panel are two esteemed speakers, Manix Abrera and Emiliana Kampilan. After both panelists speak, we will go into a Q&A session. So for those watching on YouTube and Facebook, please type up your questions in the comment section. The first panelist is Manix Abrera, the author of the daily comic strip Kiko Machine Comics in the Philippine Daily Inquirer and the weekly webcomic News Hardcore in GMA News Online. He has currently authored 20 books and has won multiple national book awards for his wordless graphic novel 14, Comics Compilation News Hardcore, and Comics Compilation Kiko Machine Comics 14, Alaala ng Kinabukasan. Our second panelist is also a National Book Awards winner. Si Emiliana Lia Kampilan ay naniniwala sa comics bilang praksi. Siya ang may akda ng Dead Balaktas at naging editor ng Kalipunang Comics ng mga kababaihan na Ligaw Tingin. Naging contributor rin siya para sa Soron at Community Comics Pride Edition. Good morning, everyone. So let's start with Manix. You're supposed to.
Sige. Good morning. Magpapakita ako ng ilang comic strips na ginawa ko during nitong pandemic. Pero ipapakita ko siya na ganito. So, mag-storytelling na lang ako, tsaka medyo analog siya para masaya. Tapos, babasahin ko siya, tsaka i-explain ko sa inyo kung paano ko siya inisip, tsaka na-conceptualize. Yan. So, yan. Pagtsaga na lang muna natin, ha. So, nag-concentrate ako nitong mga panahong to dun sa mga fake news kasi 'di ba napaka-importante ngayon ng fact versus fiction. Ayan, lalo sa kumakalat sa mga online na hindi na natin alam kung ano yung totoo. So, may lumapit sa akin na isang NGO, yung FMA, Freedom for Media Alternatives. Ayan. Nagpaisip sila sa akin ng comics na makatulong para sa paglaban sa media disinformation, misinformation. Yan. So nag-isip ako ng comics na ano kayang magagawa kong comics na tungkol dito. Pero gusto ko yung may style ng Kiko Machine pa rin na makulit, tsaka medyo kakaiba, tsaka weird. Kasi yun yung mga kinahiligan kong comics talaga yun. So inisip ko, gagawa na lang ako tungkol sa social media ng impyerno. Ayan. So, nag-start ako na gumawa ko dito. Yan. Somewhere in Hell. So, may mga nagre-relax ng mga demonyo. Tapos may nagtatawag doon na demonyo na naka-eyeglasses. Sabi niya, psst, sawa na kayo sa endless torturing lang ng souls? You wanna go down the ladder of success pa? Kako. Nagre-recruit kami ngayon sa SOCMED department. Oh, it's gonna be the creme de la creme department of Hades soon. Ooh, bewitching. Tapos mababa na sila sa malalim na part pa ng impyerno. Misinform and disinform we shall. Unholy media illiteracy we will sow. Cackle. Oh, unholy shit. Ay, sorry. Bow down sa statues ng mga bagong bayani ng impyerno. These demon spirit guides ng mga troll. Yun. So may mga status-stata doon ng mga sikat na mga troll ngayon na kumakalat sa atin. Tapos sabi ng mga demonyo, oh, we are not worthy. Tapos ito may nagpipicture-picture pa. Yan. Tapos pagdating nila sa malalim na part ng hell, dami-dami mga tipo ng mga demonyo dun sa baba. Oh, look, an ongoing fake news concocting class. Super saya niyan, grabe, haha. Nefarious, spellbinding, yan. So, may fake news class sila.
Tapos sabi na, so come on, click here to join. Bilisan nyo, click before you think. Click. Tapos OMG, dali, I'm thinking na. So yun yung ginagawa kong comics na nilalagyan ko pa rin ng humor kasi gustong-gusto ko yung mga comics na may sinasabi pero nakakatawa, na sobrang nakakatawa. Na pagtatawanan mo muna pero maganda sana na mapapaisip din yung reader na yan. So, nung pinasa ko tong comics na to, nagdadasal talaga ako na sana tanggapin naman kasi impyerno na naman yung ginawa ko yan. So, buti tinanggap naman niya, tsaka mukhang okay naman yata yung reception yan. So, inisip ko, sige, tutuloy-tuloy ko to. Kasi pag pinayagan nila to, si-series ko talaga to. Ayan. So, tinuloy ko. So, yun yung number 1. Ito yung second. Ayan. So, nagkaklase na sila. Ayan. So, dito muna tayo. Sa Social Media Department of Hell. Welcome, cursed ones. Today we'll discuss how you can manipulate ilang unsuspecting souls to spread fake news, Castro. Devilishly conceal na imbento ang inyong sources. Anong source mo? Dark sorcery. Tapos manipulate photos. I-photoshop nyo ng matindi. Tapos kakaboom. Decontextualize to beguile like hell. Sorry, nabubulil ako. Tapos juicy, sensational headlines ang susi sa inyong fiendish success. Ooh, yum. Oh my God. Tapos may elective din tayo on some tito or tita techniques to make them exage hyper-emotional and spread fake news agad. Ooh, the dark arts, the unholy courses. Ayan. Kasi di ba sikat yung mga tito-tita na kalat ng mga fake news. Ewan ko kung nakakaranas kayo ng yun, pero ganun sa amin eh. Ayan. Tapos, let's pray before we continue. Sign of the inverted cross. O Prince of Lies, help us spread misinformation in freedom. In freedom of disinformation we trust. Destroy. Ayan. So, pray sila na nakabaliktad din cross. And so, ganun yung comments ko. Binabaliktad ko lang talaga. Tapos, sinisingitan ko talaga ng mga commentary ko sa mga pangyayari. Kasi grabe talaga eh. Yan. Tapos, ang dami nagtatanong sa akin, paano ba ako nakaisip ng mga ganitong mga comics? Basta napaka-important lang na alam mo yung mga nangyayari sa paligid. Tapos, important na meron kang stand. Tapos, maganda na alam mo yung mga iba't ibang pananaw. Tapos, magbubuo ka ng sarili mong pananaw. Pero yung ginagawa ko kasing comics din, hindi ko sinuspoon feed masyado sa reader yung pananaw ko. Gusto ko na mag-iisip din sila. Ayan. Tapos ito, part 3. Ayan, sa Social Media Department of Hades. Ito, pinaglaruan ko yung logo ng Cobra Kai, kung nanonood ko yun. Ayan, disinform first, mislead hard, no mercy. Ayan, tapos 666, LOL. Tapos, okay guys, icebreaker muna. Mamaya na uli yung trolling na yan. Sayang, ang dami ko nang natitrigger. Oh. Ay, ako isa pa lang. Tapos, group yourselves into 2 pentagrams. May game tayo. Pass the cursed message. Di naman siguro kayo isa't kalahating tanga, right? You know how it works. Ayan. So, parang pass the message to ng impyerno. I'll make bulong some news. Then, ipapasa niyo ang balita. Then, sasabihin ng nasa dulo ang balita. Yung may pinakamalayo sa original news, yun yung victorious. Ayan. Alam niyo yung game na yun, di ba? Yung pass the message. Yung may sabihin ka message, dapat parehong-pareho yung message sa pinakadulo. Pero dito baliktad, dapat yung pinakamalayo, yun yung mananalo. So yung binulong niyang message, Jesus saves thou. Tawanan sila. Tapos bilis, remember our motto, may valuable and godly lesson sa game na to. Tapos nagbulungan na sila, pass the message. Tapos hanggang sa pinakadulo, oh forsaken one, terrorist si God is the message. Yay, and we have our vanquisher, o diba? Apply it sa social media lang. Yay! Tatawanan sila. Tapos nainis pa yung ibang mga demonyo. Yan, ito yung usong-uso nun yung mga yung mga terrorist, yung mga issue. Kahit sino pwede maging terrorist. Yan. Tapos, minsan nagre-relax din ako sa inaamin kong sakit ko kasi sa paggawa ng comics yung wordy. Ang daming words. Kasi pag nagsulat ako, parang ang dami talagang words. Tapos, sa lagay na to, medyo nag-improve na nga ako na nabawasan ko na yung mga dialogue ko. Tapos minsan nagpapahinga talaga ako na magdodrawing lang ako ng mga libro, konti lang yung dialogue talaga. Ayan. Tapos gumawa ako ng Social Media of Hell Required Readings. Ayan. Gumawa ako ng book na Patron Demons of Trolls. Ayan. Tapos, miscommunication theories for dummies. Learn to manipulate and deceive online like a pro. Tapos ito, 666 fake news that shaped our world. Trolls and ideas that changed the way we think. Ayan. Tapos the collected tweets and posts of mock that's out of stock. Ayan. Wala na lang natin kung sino yan. That's the elements of bad grammar. Ayan. Misinformed, disinformed, troll with bad grammar. Annoy demonically. That's powerful stuffs. Ayan. Tapos, I will unfollow you. Selected poems of the Prince of Flies. Ayan. Tapos, ito yung last na nagawa ko sa series na yun. Itutuloy ko pa siya sa mga susunod na buwan, pero may pahinga muna ako ngayon. Ayan. So ito, Social Media of Hell, Appetite for Distraction. Ito nilaro ko yung album cover ng Guns N' Roses na Appetite for Destruction. Anyway, Ox guys, graded recitation tayo today. I hope binasa niyo yung inassign kong distraction techniques. Opo, mahal na kadiliman. Hypothetical problem. Failing ang admin of hell sa pag-contain ng kumakalat na salvation. How could it and its troll army distract hell's populace from the real problem? Class number 18. Sir, deny everything habang nagpapakita ng abdominal muscles or medyo nakasilip na mammary glands po. Pasay, pero pwede na. Class number 6. Amplify or invent of factions like putian kasi maka-Jesus or something. Para manggulo lang and pang-end ng argument agad. Pwede. Number 24. Ibalik ang resurrection penalty, maglagay ng white clouds sa hell, mang-away ng kung sino-sino, etc. Boom! Distraction. That's how to be you po, rock and roll. Very evil, class valedictorian. Tapos nagpapalakpakan na sila. And so, ganun yung paggawa ko ng comics. Nakakatawa siya, tapos sinisingitan ko ng social commentary. Pero, madalas gagawin ko talagang weirdo eh. Saka, minsan pag inis na inis ako sa mga nangyayari sa paligid, yan, lalagyan ko talaga ng mga demo-demonyo dyan na mga makukulit. Yan. Tapos ang style ko rin sa paggawa ng comics, lagi akong nagko-concentrate sa facial expression sa mga dinadrawing ko. Ayan. So para dun sa mga gustong gumawa ng comics, lalo na sa mga beginners, isa to sa mga mabibigay kong tips na natutunan ko through the years. Kasi gagaling ka talaga mag-drawing. Talagang, basta kahiligan mo na mag-drawing, gagaling ka talaga eh. Mag-practice mo yan. Tapos, isa sa mga magandang tutukan yung facial expressions. Bukod sa mga shading, sa mga anatomy, ayan. Practice ka sa facial expressions ng characters mo. Kasi dami pang makikwento ng drawing mo through their expressions na hindi mo na kailangang isulat kung ano yung iniisip nila or nararamdaman. Tapos, wag mo masyadong spoon feed yung story. Bigyan mo ng malaking space yung reader na mag-isip. Para sa akin, napaka-important nun. Saka, pasasalamatan ka ng reader pag pinapaisip mo siya. Tapos, yun, maging aware ka sa pangyayari, magkaroon ka ng stand. Saka, mahalin mo ang iyong ginagawa. So, maraming salamat. Mamaya pag may questions kayo, sabihin nyo lang kay Paolo. Sagutin namin yun. Thank you.
Thank you, Manix. Let's before we go into questions, let's welcome our second panelist, Emiliana Kampilan.
Hello, good morning po sa lahat. Good morning, Paolo and Manix. Manix, long time no see.
Good morning.
Okay, so yung meron akong presentation dapat. Ayan, yeah. So, yung topic ko is not personal to me, but it's sort of, in part, updates regarding comics and zines and what's happening with comiceros in general during this very long period ng pandemic at saka ng mga bagyo. So, that's a really ambitious title, di ba? Collective Creative Resistance and the Portrait of Artistic Value. And it's, when we say artistic value, of course, we're referring to works of art and literature. Pero for this talk, dahil komikero kami ni Manix, we're going to talk about comics and zines. I'm including zines kasi Maraming komikero na gumagawa din ng zine, and there's this very thin line minsan separating what are zines and what are comics. But that's really something, the discussion for another day. So next slide, please. Art is not priceless. Literature is not priceless, and comics are not priceless. But the question that I do want to ask is, what determines the value of comics and zines? Ano ba ang halaga talaga ng comics and zines? So, next slide po. So, sa madaling salita, presyo. Yun yung pinakamadaling sagot is, magkano ba ang comics and zines at paano ba tinedetermine ang value ng comics and zines? As with other art forms and literary forms, comics and zines are produced within a particular society. In our particular society, which is capitalist and fascist, it's inescapable, kagaya na sabi ni Adorno, na nabahira na ng kapitalismo tsaka ng pasismo ang produksyon ng comics sa gaya na sa iba pang sine. For instance, with regards to the subject matter, we are limited then to what we can write about. We are limited to what we can draw about. Or even if we can draw about, let's say, Duterte, we are limited then to representations of Duterte, especially with the anti-terrorism law in place. And it's interesting nga na komikeros kagaya ni Manix find ways to talk about this in a humorous light na it sheds light on these topics, pero at the same time, it utilizes humor and ayun, nagiging interesado for the reader. So, limitado din tayo, higit sa lahat, sa mga espasyo kung saan natin to pwedeng ibenta. Lately, we've taken to digital selling of comics. Whereas dati, pang-augment lang kumbaga dapat yung digital selling with comics because we had spaces, physical spaces for selling these. And because hindi interesado ang mga mainstream bookstores na pagbebenta ng karamihan sa mga comics at scenes, walang espasyo para magbenta ng comics at scenes. So this too affects our pricing of our work. So to give a quick rundown, of course, kailangan bawiin ng komikero yung production cost, magkano pagpapaprint, yung kuryente, yung materials na ginamit. And of course, as with many works of arts, interesting na napepresyuhan din siya dun sa kung sino yung creator mismo. Because dito din pumapasok yung demand for the works of that particular creator. A creator who is much more in demand can, of course, command a higher price. That is the rational conclusion that we can gain from that. So, in effect, number 3 is also the readers who also determine the price of the work. Hindi pwedeng taasan ng sobra. Kahit gaano kaganda yan, kung wala namang bibili, malulugi din yung komikero. It seems vile to talk about art in this way sa presyuhan. Pero as I have said, we are operating within this capitalist economy. And so, virtue of works are determined then by this. And this is why I'm discussing this. Next slide po, please. So, kung tama ba ito would be the next question. Tama bang ganun ang presyo ng comics? Because usually, ang mga prices ng comics is about 90 to 200 plus. And as for graphic novels, because, ayun, mas mahal naman talaga ang paggawa. Mas labor-intensive. Mas mahal lang nagiging presyohan din. So, this is from the National Wages Commission. Hindi ka na bawi ba ng komikero yung gawa niya? And the most obvious answer is, next slide po, hindi. Below the minimum wage pa ang kinikita ng mga komikero. Napakasaklap talagang tignan sa totoo lang. But it is inescapable given that comics are sold and exchanged within the present market. So we have to abide by the rules of supply and demand. And this is the interesting position of art and other mental labors as mentioned nga by Marx in his Das Kapital, in that these take a much more longer time to create dahil pinag-iisipan Pinag-iisipan muna yung gawa bago paggawin. And you're not paid for that mental labor. You're not paid for the technicality that goes with it. So, lugi talaga. So, ito ba, ang tanong lang naman is, tama ba naman na ito ang gagawing basis ng valuation ng comics? So, next slide is, the answer is, pa, hindi talaga. Kawawa talaga yung komikero. But, by, the interesting part of it is, as both commodities and artworks, they also straddle this fine line of what Adorno really calls autonomous. They enjoy this autonomous creativity. In that they they can be used as tools to resist fascism, and they can be used as counterculture tools, even though they're also at the same time cultural artifact. So Beach, in his interview regarding his book on art, regarding an interview regarding art and value, ayan yung sabi niya. The principal feature of an art as a mode of production is that artists have not been converted into wage laborers as is necessary for the capitalist mode of production. That's interesting kasi really we're supplying comics and zines even though no one really needs comics and zines. Diba? Pinibigay natin without abiding by the laws of supply and demand completely. So, what we've been seeing during this pandemic is that comics and zines have been making their own value for themselves. As cliche as it may sound, immeasurable value, one that resists the temptation of empiricism. But as we have seen during this pandemic, and next slide po. Oh yeah, this is just limited to Marian and kay Rob kasi hindi ko nakuha yung permiso ng ibang creator. But ang daming comics and zines creators who have participated in these donation drives during the pandemic and during the typhoon season and really used their comics para talagang makapag-ambag dun sa mga nasalanta na bagyo at ng pandemya. So, is that part nung discussion natin sa pagpapresyo ng comics kanina? No. But it is value, immeasurable within our society. Next slide, please. So it's another example, and it is not limited to the typhoon season, pero ayan yung paggawa nung sa San Roque, nung collective nung alliance ng libro, children's book, kapit-kapit, bahay-bahay. So, hindi included sa presyohan ng libro yung nagawa ng libro na yan para din sa community. It is through the collective action of the Alliance of Cultural Workers in San Roque that value, immeasurable and outside the labor theory of value production is created. And that's the importance of creative resistance. Next slide, please. Again, this is from Saka, and that's another example of it. This is for the fisher folk. And ano ba talagang material na benepisyo niya para din sa fisher folk? Or para din sa mga tao? Can it bring about change? Does Saka create work in order, rather, yung mga artist ba ng Saka, they create work thinking na automatically one day gigising sila tapos okay na. Meron na pong land reform. Hindi na po, save na po ang taliptip. Wala na pong dams. Hindi naman sa ganoon. Artworks alone cannot bring about change. But people can act on artworks. Okay? And in that sense, the creation of artworks really lie outside the logic of society. We keep creating them without demands for them. But because of the nature of society right now, it's fascist, it's capitalist, we have to push back. Its creation too becomes necessary. Next slide, please. Again, for San Roque. And that's why, ang punto ko dito is, we have lost, during this pandemic period, we have lost the benefits of organized conventions such as BLTX, Comic-Con, Comiket, and ganda-ganda sa sariling gawa. And these places provided comiqueros and zinesters with a venue to sell physical copies of their works and draw in the usual crowds ng mga long-time readers or ng mga bagong gustong magbasa ng comics. But they also provided something which was very important and which we have been seeing na ginagawa nitong San Roque Alliance, nitong Saka. Next slide, please. Ng mga organisasyon na to. And that is assembling comiqueros and zinesters into even temporarily a cohesive political unit. A unit of cultural creators united for, or rather you could say forced into a union because of the venue, but still that's important because kitang-kita mo pa lang if you attend Comiket, Indiket, ganda-ganda sa sariling gawa, itong mga artist na otherwise paghahanapin mo sa Twitter o paghahanapin mo sa mga tiyangge, they're there, kitang-kita mo sila physically. Next slide please. Ayan. So kahit nag-iisa kami, kahit the process of creating artworks appears to be lonely. In reality, it is not. The process of creating artworks involves a great deal of networking. I'm showing a copy of Saka Sauron, which is a comics that I participated in last year regarding the farmers in Negros. So, ano ba talaga yung value nito, kumbaga? It's both for archiving and it's really a way of fighting back against the social order. Even though hindi ako member ng Saka, next slide na po. And hindi ako member ng Saka, kasi iba yung collective ko, nagpa-participate pa rin ako sa Saka and further artistic projects. Because I realized that it is nga through collective cultural resistance na talagang we can push back and create value outside capitalist dictated norms for our own works. So kita rin dito sa may Comiket, which I am very proud to have been a contributor for. Comiqueros organized not just as cultural creators, but also as LGBT activists. And it's a very physical manifestation of our politics. Kitang-kita pa lang sa cover, si Betsy ang gumawa. And when you open the book, it's a bunch of LGBTQ curated works of LGBTQ curators. Offering that message of our cry, really, for our rallying cry for love and acceptance of LGBTQ Filipinos. Next slide. Yan yung contribution ko. Next slide. So makita din yan din sa gawa ng Panday Sining, which really got them into a lot of trouble. But it's interesting because walang presyo yung gawa nila and yet it was so impactful. Now I know that yung kanilang graffiti works are not comics and zines. But Panday Sining does release zines and artworks then. And next slide, please. Ayan, this is by Tercia Sanihon. Kahit hindi kami members nung Panday Sining, basta nagko-call for submissions, nagsasubmit ang mga komikero and zinesters. Next slide. So, ayan yung contribution ko for it. Next slide. Hindi pala next slide. Sorry. So, ayan, artists, in order to create value for our own works, again, artists need to see themselves as part of a larger polity and organize themselves as a political unit. And this has been achieved throughout the pandemic by comikeros and zinesters in their contribution efforts for typhoon victims and pandemic victims, and in their ongoing efforts to fight the fascist regime, this fascist Duterte regime, through these art collectives such as Saka and Panday Sining. In that way, they create art which is both liberating and at the same time liberated from the confines of the value theory of this capitalist society. Yun lang. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Emiliana. That was such a enlightening talk. Nagbalik ako sa klase ni Professor Edelgar Soriano nung paano siya
Ang galing.
nagising yung
Nauutal-pasan siya na.
yung literary theory
Ganda.
ng but yes, actually, so that is something that is very it's very we need to create awareness for that, and that's how not just determining our value, but how we create our own value. As you said, we can well, we kind of earn it now. We earn it in our own spaces, in our own limited spaces. But in terms of the future, medyo nagkakaroon, because it's now a content creation game. Nagkakaroon ng value ang intellectual property, and I know that's a different topic, but it's already interesting to see that it on how comics might not be or how comics creators might not be benefiting as much as they should, but that's a dream, no? That's a dream. Yeah, sige, let's start with some questions kasi ang daming questions ngayon.
Nakita ko, ang hirap ng mga question eh.
From Nico Valenzuela, a question for both of you. Anong pinakamahirap na political topic na gusto niyong isa comics? Is there a topic that you avoid, especially during these times? Or is there a topic that you're afraid to talk about? Or is there a topic that you are very, or it's the most difficult to talk about? It doesn't have to relate to fear.
Ako muna, okay lang ba?
Okay.
Sige. Ako meron akong medyo parang personally nahihirapan akong gumawa ng comics tungkol sa mga bagyo at saka mga sakuna sa mga baha. Lalo na kung gagawin ko siya sa Kiko Machine Comics. Kasi usually pag Kiko Machine Comics yung gagawin ko, humorous siya eh. Alam na ng mga tao na nakakatawa. So, laging malaking challenge sa akin yan. Paano ko i-comics tong sakuna? Parang itong nakaraang yung mga baha at saka bagyo. Yan. Parang nahirap ako sa ganun. So, talagang magbibigay ako ng mahabang panahon muna para mapag-isipan ko ng mabuti bago pa kung paano ko siya ipe-present. Yan. Lalagyan ko pa rin ng humor, pero parang gusto kong lagyan ng pag-asa. Tsaka nilalagyan ko pa rin siyempre ng mga puna. Ayan. So, parang pinaghahalo-halo ko yun. Pero para sa akin, hirap na hirap ako doon.
Emiliana?
I agree ako kay Manix anything that involves trauma, lalo pag may present, pag masyadong recent yung activity, ay kailangan talaga with caution natin na-approach. Ako is yung gawa ko naman kasi may malulungkot and anyway, yung pwedeng hindi humorous. So, ang talagang medyo nahihirapan ako i-handle na topic is yung kapag sa vowsy, kapag sa mga rape. Kasi yung portrayal itself mismo, yung yung physicalness of the act, paano natin to gagawin ng hindi nakakapag-ungkat, kumbaga, ng trauma dun sa mga biktima at survivor. Yun yung isa sa mga primary concern ko. So, hindi naman sa takot, pero ayun, yeah. Kumbaga talagang
when you illustrate the traumatic event, it's like you're physicalizing and energizing it, and yet you're bringing it back to the present, and it exists throughout time, no? So that's in comics kasi has always been connected to or has a very close relationship with political satire and how it's used, and we've seen that also in local politics. In panahon ni Erap, there were a lot of Erap jokes, a lot of Erap cartoons. Is it different now? Do you think comiceros can actively poke fun, whether it's pagpuna finding the humor or pag-asa with political figures or policies or events that like the pandemic and how it has been received by our own government. Sorry, is that I'm asking a very hard question. Okay, I just want to know your thoughts on like Manix or comics had no. It was about of course you explained that the thought process of why you chose fake news, but are is it harder to write
Sige.
comics now or fake
Oo.
now?
Yung sa question na gandang tanong yan. Naalala ko yung tatay ko kasi si Jess Abrera, political cartoonist talaga. Na noon pa, yung comics yung alipin. Tapos pa gumagawa siya ng comics, style niya talaga yun na gumagawa siya tungkol kina sa mga current presidents, ganyan. Pero ang ginagawa niya kasi, never niyang sinusulat yung pangalan, laging caricature. Tapos may patama, pero caricature lang lagi yung mga pinapatamaan niya. So, hindi siya malalibel kasi hindi niya sinulat kung sino, hindi drawing. Tapos kung may nagreklamo man, na politician o kung sino man, parang sagutin ng dyaryo na, ba't kayo nagreklamo? Guilty ba kayo? Ikaw ba yan? Ganyan. So parang may mga, kaya yun ang power ng, ng caricature na ina-apply ng ibang cartoonists. Ayan. So, ako, yun din yung kinuha kong style. Hindi ko sinasabing ito yung tama na ito yung dapat, pero iba-ibang style yan. So, ako yun yung inadapt ko kasi naman ako sa tatay ko na pwedeng gano'n, pwedeng caricature mo, o pwedeng subtle yung attack mo. Pero importante na meron kang sinasabi, tsaka mapapaisip yung reader mo. Ayan. Tapos, ang isang malaking difference din, noong unang panahon kasi hindi pa uso yung mga internet troll eh. So, hindi pa uso yung internet. Kaya kung may nilabas ka, kung may mga away sa'yo, susulatan pa yung editor, dami kong pagdadaanan pag umabot sa'yo. Tapos, minsan mapapaisip pa yung magsusulat, tapos parang ile-let go niya lang, parang tama naman siguro siya. Pero ngayon parang game na, tira ka agad. Tapos, kung creator ka na online ka rin madalas, parang may tendency na sagutin mo rin kaagad. Ayan. Kaya ako minsan hindi ako nagbabasa masyado ng mga comments or ng mga, hindi ko masyadong nasasagot yung mga nagko-comment, lalo na kung mga troll, pag alam mong yung mga nang troll lang. Ayan. So parang kanya-kanyang style yan. Alam, si Emiliana, malamang may ibang style din siya. Yung ibang mga cartoonists, may ibang style yan. So, nasa iyo yun bilang artist kung anong style ang gagamitin mo, anong technique. Ayan. Pag-iisipan mo yan, tsaka kung saan mo feeling mo malakas ang loob mo, kung ano yung kaya mong gawin. Ayan. Yun yung doon ka pupunta. So, kikilalanin mo yung sarili mo, tsaka aalamin mo.
So, interesting yung sinabi ni Manix kasi yung kanya is his take working with newspapers than Manix, di ba syndicated publishing. Ako kasi is, kumbaga, I guess mas may freedom din ako kasi hindi naman ako nag-ooperate as an agent na mga publishing companies. Kumbaga, I just publish it on my own na yun ang kagandahan din ng pagiging independent. Pero at the same time, maganda yung pinoint out talaga ni Manix na hindi na siya dadaan sa proseso ng paano ba itong term na to, kundi kumbaga is pag-pierce ng corporate veil. Kasi dediretso ka na ng pangbabanat din sa artist eh. And the thing is, na-democratize talaga yung means natin to spread this artworks as Manix has mentioned. Pero at the same time, na-infiltrate nga ng mga masasamang loob ang internet. You can no longer enjoy cat videos ng masaya. Diba? So, yung compared with the era time na people were making a livelihood at eruption jokes. Ngayon is kailangan mas maingat ka talaga because rabid talagang they've utilized these spaces talaga to get back at their critics. There's really an active silencing going on. Lalo I think sa may Mindanao area, and I just know two writer friends, si Miss Christine Muslimong and si Joanna Lynn, they're not comics people, but they're writers. Pero, ayun, lalo na sa may Davao, sa may Mindanao, talagang delikado ang mga kritikong artists or kritikong writers. So, it's a much different political climate talaga ngayon. A deadlier one, I'd say.
And especially now that the medium has changed, that before, like Erup's time, uh, there wasn't any social media was totally different. Digital media was totally different back then. And it was always a one-way street. It was only when social media became more active and more accessible and more democratic that now readers can answer back. Now you can create fake accounts to answer back and to control the conversation. Anybody can do it. Diba? Anybody can take control over and go viral and take control of the conversation. That's why it's hard to compare different administrations without including the context of the times. Because now everybody has an opinion and their opinions can reach the author. Diba? It can reach the it's a two-way street now. It's not like before. So it's really a different time. Okay, so the next question is from Cecil Francisco. How do you think people decades from now will view your political works? Do you think the interpretation and impact will remain the same? Thank you.
Mahirap na tanong yan kasi depende rin kasi kung may topic kang ginawa ngayon na napaka time bound, yung mga ngayon lang talaga yung makakagets. Siguro in a few years from na hindi na magigets yan Lalo pa kung taga-ibang bansa yung magbabasa. Alam niyo ba yung comics na yung Doonesbury? Yung sa US, di ba parang political comics siya. Pag binabasa ko yung mga strips niya, may mga nagigets akong iba na super nakakatawa talaga. Pero ang daming iba ron na alam mong mas sila lang yung mga kagets, yung mga doon nakatira. So, siguro ganun din sa atin. Tapos, nasa sa'yo na yun bilang artist din, kung yung gagawin mong comics ay, ang pakay mo ba ay gagawa ka ng comics na magtatagal, na hindi siya time-bound, yung timeless yung gagawin mo. Parang Calvin and Hobbes. Ayan. Isang magandang comics yun na sa tingin ko timeless Meron siyang dinidiscuss na topic. Usually general, kunyari environmentalism. Pero hindi siya time-bound. Kahit 20, 30 or centuries from now, feeling ko magigets pa rin siya. So, nasa sa'yo yun kung ganong klaseng comics yung gagawin mo. Pero iba rin yung impact kasi ng comics na meron kang pinopoint down talaga na ngayon nangyayari na lakas ng impact niya. Yan. So, ibabalance mo yan. Nahanapin mo kung ano bang klaseng comics tsaka story yung gusto mong gawin. Yung ngayon na pero malakas. So, magtatagal naman yung niya. Pwede pang pag-aralan yun pero yun yung sa tingin ko.
Oh, I agree super kay Manix. Nagiging later on, cultural artifact talaga siya. As with other forms of artwork, Miss Cecil. Tapos, ang dagdag ko dyan is yung gamit natin minsan ng representations. Yung parang, pag tinitignan nyo ng araw yung magawa ni si Kenkoy, si Velasquez, Tony Velasquez, is talagang may use ng blackface. Yung ibang characters, mukha silang yung mga minstrel caricature na talagang racist. And it becomes really dated. Noong panahon na yun, walang problema yun. Pero ngayon, hindi natin to gagawin kasi mulat na tayo sa na hindi ito angkop na representasyon. So, ayun. At saka yung kahit sa mga usapan, for instance, ng sa sexualidad, sa gender, hindi natin alam kung evolving kasi yung concepts na ito. So, hindi natin alam kung in the future, timely pa ba ito. Pero we can only hope na, kumbaga, people can look back at it and, ayun, call it na it discussed this in a good way during its time. Ganun. And tama si Manix, it's all about intent din. Meron ding mga works na timeless. Ayun.
And also to note, it's very important that it gets published because right now we lost we didn't totally lose one comics publisher, which is Visprint, but napakahalaga din na may naglilimbag kasi lang, like yung Kenkoy, we only got sources of that again when the grandson
Oo nga.
published the work again. But to also help answer that question, uh, Manix and Emiliana are National Book Award winners, so they will be remembered. So their works. Of course, they don't want to say this because they're the artist uh, ano naman. But as the moderator, I just have to say uh, that our Manix and Emiliana are National Book Award winners, and of course, we know the problematics of awards, but at least the benefit of it is that it already leaves a mark. And also to note that Emiliana is the first and only female winner of the National Book Awards for Best Graphic Novel or Best Comic. So that's why it's how to keep it siguro available. So that's actually for me the value of digital comics is that pag naubos na yung papel, pag naubos na yung libro, there is still proof that it existed. Kasi yan yung problema natin in our in in our literature in the past, diba? Our oral literature, our first few literatures were compiled by the colonizers. So we don't know if it's actually us or if it's edited or it's chosen, diba? So it's yeah, it's that's the value of digital technology now. And that you are actively on your social media accounts as well, posting. Okay, so next question is from Bambi Iloriaga Amago. Sa tingin nyo ba may danger na matrivialize ang national issues if you present them with a humorous twist? So does humor make the issue less serious or the problem less serious?
Para sa akin, sa personal na tingin ko lang to ulit. Sa tingin ko na pag ginawang humorous yung issue, may nakakatakot talaga na matrivialize. Pero kung isipin mo, may kabaliktaran din yan na mas kakalat siya at mas mapapag-usapan. At sa tingin ko, habang mas dumadami yung mga nag-uusap tungkol sa issue na to, mas mahanapan natin siya ng solusyon, ng paraan. Saka makaisip tayo ng paraan kung mas makikita natin yung root ng problema at maiisip na, bakit ganito? Bakit dapat ganito ang gawin natin? Yun yung sa tingin ko naman.
Ay depende talaga sa, I think back to yung question kanina nga, Paolo, na are there topics na kailangan we have to be extra sensitive about? And ayun yun, that comes in na you really have to be careful with humor because ang question is, sino ba ang pinagtatawanan? Ano ang pinagtatawanan? So, as a rule lang, you never punch down, kumbaga.
Tama, maganda yung sinabi ni Emiliana. Isipin mo yung sino yung pinagtatawanan mo. Ano yung pagtatawanan mo. Tama.
Okay, so I'm trying to get as much questions answered kasi ang daming questions.
Pili ka na yung pinakamadali. Joke lang.
It's very rare to have you.
Pili ka naman pinakamahirap.
So, from the concerned artists of the Philippines, Padayon, Ben Balagtas at Kiki Machine, what do you think are the challenges for artists in this time of increasing political repression and state terror? Are you afraid to be red tagged? Or are you afraid to be... Yeah, I will not continue the thought.
Ako sa akin yung challenge talaga yung kung matatakot ka ba or hindi. Yan. Saka napakalaking challenge yung alamin mo yung stand mo. Yan. At kasi daming pananaw. Yan. Hanapin mo kung saan ka tatayo. At paano mo to, at isa pang napakalaking challenge, paano mo to ipe-present gamit ang iyong art. Yan. Kasi minsan yung sinasabi mo, sumasabog na talaga sa puso mo. Parang gusto mo lang mag-wild, magmurayan. Pero bilang artist, isipin mo pa rin, paano ako maging creative about it? Yan. So, isa yan sa napakalaking challenge for me sa tingin ko. Paano ko gagawing creative itong naiisip kong ikwento or sabihin.
Dagdag lang kay Manix talaga na, ayun, overcoming your fear din talaga. I think ang biggest challenge ka natin is, kaya din yung naging point of discussion ko is, artists as a collective, is yung necessity of us to organize talaga and see ourselves as a political unit. I think hindi lang siya challenge sa mga komikero, pero challenge siya sa lahat ng artists. Everyone working in the creative industry. We need to see ourselves as part of this bigger political unit, as a political unit that can affect social change or rather suggest social change through our works. And ayun ang mahirap nga is yung pagiging part ng organisasyon na nire-red tag constantly ng gobyerno. So, yung tanong is kung ako ma-red tag. Naman, sanay na tayo dyan. Diyos ko Lord, hindi mo sa pag-ano. Kahit hindi ako sa Emiliana, is member pa rin ako ng core na nire-red tag. So, what is the point? Diba ako matatakot? Kung gawa lang ng gawa talaga. Peg ko na lang ngayon. Kung sa takot lang, hindi dapat magpatalo sa administratong ito. Kasi yun yung gusto nila.
Okay. But it's also interesting to note that you're right. The comics community is very responsive and very vocal, and also when they can, they use their art to help raise funds and hopefully make the change or educate. Okay, so another question from Karl Castro. How should we introduce young people to the comics form as a vehicle of expression na hindi siya nakatali sa dominant perception na it's primarily humor or cuteness?
Hirap naman yan. Mauna ka naman, Emiliana.
Sige.
Hirap talaga magtanong ni Karl. Lagi mahirap yung mga question yan si Karl.
Karl, but talagang sa akin is hindi naman sa akin is marami na rin comics na hindi lang limitado sa humor or sa cute na representation sa kanilang gawa. Nandyan yung gawa ni na Julius, nandyan yung gawa ni na sino pa ba, medyo safe sa mga bata. Marami. Si Julius, gusto ko sabihin si Juliet, kailan nga lang nare-realize ko nagbumura siya kaya pero I guess with some guidance, pwede naman. Si Manix din naman, ayun, humor na siya, pero at the same time, meron tackling ng mga mabibigat na topic. So I think, the key to it is just exposing the child to more works. As in, to a variety of comics. And I guess challenge ka din ito sa mga komikero na gumawa ng mga general patronage works, no? Kasi the thing is, may tendency maging adult-themed ang mga gawa. Oo nga, thank you for pointing that out din.
Maganda nga yun. Agree ako doon na mahirap ako mismo, nahirapan akong gumawa ng comics na pambata eh. Ang pinaka-active lang na ginagawa ko na iniisip ko kasi pag sa dyaryo kasi dahil lumalabas din yung Kiko Machine Comics sa Inquirer, lagi kami pinagsasabihan ng editor na isipin nyo, babasahin din niya ng mga bata at mga lola. Ha? Yan. So, parang napaka-broad ng audience na isipin. Yan. So, nasanay lang ako na, sige, basta pinoint out sa amin, huwag ka magmumura, tsaka iwasan mo yung toilet humor. Ayan. So, parang, pwede na yun sa mga bata, basta hindi ka magmumura, tsaka walang toilet humor. So, minsan pag nagmumura-mura, yung ginagawa ko sa comics, yung mga symbol-symbol lang. Yung mga kung anong symbols yun. Sa mind ng adult reader, mura na yun. Pero pag nakita ng bata, alam niya naman na, ay, bad word siguro yun or kung ano man.
Okay. I think that's about all the time that we have left. Although ang daming insights and ang daming magandang conversations on different topics that are really connected. What stuck really was on how we on what determines our value, and siguro it's a time that on how both of you have created your own value, and which is also the reason why entire comics community looks up to the two of you. And so I can't speak for the entire community, but all I can say is thank you for all of the work that you do. Because not everybody chooses to do what you do, and that's okay. But because you do the work that you do, thank you for all you do. And may you be remembered across time for all of
Thank you
that.
rin sa Comiket.
Thank you, Paolo. Paolo is a huge organizer then. And we keep talking to creators, but we should also be talking to organizers themselves.
So
Thank you.
while we still can do the work that we do, we'll still be doing it. Habang kaya pa. Okay, so to formally close the session, thank you, Manix Abrera and Emiliana Kampilan, and thank you
Thank
to
you.
everyone tuning in today. Do stick around for the next panel on Creative Bookselling Course 2020. The Book Development Association of the Philippines would like to thank our partners in this Lit Fest, the National Book Development Board, Happy Toothpaste, Daz Dishwashing Liquid, and Prime Trade. We'd like to invite everyone to visit Manila International Book Fair online at manilabookfair.com to get big discounts on the best books and also to do support Emiliana Campilan's book, Dead Balagtas, which is available on the website, and Manix Sabera's Kikun Machine Comics. I'm Paula Harris, and thank you for being with me today. And let's all read more comics. Thank you.
Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the Pandemic Playbook, the BDAP Literary Festival. Okay, I hope everyone's doing well. Oh, by the way, this festival is brought to you by BDAP, or the Book Development Association of the Philippines, in cooperation with the National Book Development Board. And it's some of our friends and sponsors like Happy Toothpaste, Daz Dishwashing Liquid, and of course, Prime Trade. We have a very exciting panel discussion for this morning, and it's entitled Creative Bookselling Course 2020, how booksellers are coping. I'm sure everyone's asking the same questions and want to find out more about how we can all cope, right? So my name is Toots Policarpio. I'm a BDAP trustee, and I will be your moderator this morning. And featured in this panel discussion are two very esteemed and experienced industry players, okay? And in no particular order, they are Padma Perez. Padma is an anthropologist by training and a writer by heart. She is the author of Green Entanglements, Nature Conservation and Indigenous Peoples' Rights in Indonesia and the Philippines. Together with her sister, Padma owns and runs Mountain Cloud Bookshop. And it's an independent bookstore located in their hometown of Baguio. She's currently Asia editor and project lead for the Agam Agenda, which seeks to stoke conversations about the climate through art and stories. Interesting. Okay. Hi, Padma.
Hi, good morning. Great to be here
Okay,
with you.
great.
I'm in
And
Baguio. I'm in the bookshop.
oh, great. It's good to know. How's the weather?
Gloomy today and cold.
Oh, wow. Although I'm sure everyone would love to be where you are right now. Okay. So anyway, on to the next. No, we'll be with you in a while. Our next panelist, our other panelist, is Mr. Oliver Ortega. And Oliver is a co-founder and co-publisher of Everything's Fine, a small indie press that seeks to build a community around sustainable and author-friendly bookmaking practices. He's also a graphic designer who specializes in making books. Hello, Oliver.
Hello, hello everyone.
Okay,
Magandang umaga.
so yeah, gandang umaga. Okay, a few ground rules. After both panelists have spoken or have done their presentations, we will have Q&A. However, if during the presentations of each of the panelists you have questions, you may type in your comments or your questions, whether you're on Facebook on the comment section or whether you're watching from YouTube. Okay, so just type it in, and both of our panelists will be doing the discussions and answering your questions right after both of them have presented. Okay. All right. So with that, let's get on. Let's get on to it. Okay. So our first presenter will be Oliver Ortega, and he'll be followed by Padma, of course. So Oliver, take it away.
All right. Magandang umaga ulit sa lahat. What I'll be sharing, to be honest, I'm not really sure kung creative talaga siya or not. Kasi if you read online, you'll probably see that some of the things we've done were done also by others, and some of them have also done more creative stuff than us. But I'm hoping that yung experiences that I will share sa book selling ng Everything's Fine will be of help to others. Okay, yung Everything's Fine, we started it with Angela Stewart Santiago's book, Pro Bernal, Anti-Bio, which is the memoir of the late film director Ishmael Bernal many years ago. The book was published by ABS-CBN Publishing. Pero even before the book went into print run, we've already decided that we wanted to purchase a huge fraction of the print run. We actually wanted to, we purchased outright from ABS-CBN Publishing 70% of the book's print run. And that was actually put into the contract, the publisher's contract of Ms. Angela Stewart Santiago with ABS-CBN Publishing. We decided to do that because we realized that we may be more able to sell the books quickly. Kasi sa part ng ABS-CBN, they just wanted to put the books in commercial bookshops, primarily National Bookstore and Playbook. And since the consignment rates for those shops are 40% SRP, we were able to buy the book at 40% off then from ABS-CBN Publishing. Basically, we understood kasi the book's niche na it's about film. It's not a young adult title or a fiction title. So we understood na there are certain people lang that would be probably interested in getting this book. And with the author's connection with the film industry, having worked there in the past, we know that we are in a better position to sell the book to the people that would really want it. And to add to that, we also went all the way in selling the book in film festivals, in Films Awards night, and also in every event or film screening na about Ishmael Bernal or about yung works ng film director. So medyo all out kami pagdating dyan sa bagay na yan. Kung merong event na merong tungkol sa film or tungkol sa pelikula ni Bernal, we try to make sure that we are there. And then aside from having the copies available in community bookshops, we make sure that we have copies of the book in Cinema Centenario. Cinema Centenario is a micro cinema that is based in Maginhawa, Quezon City. And we realized that having a book about film, about Ishmael Bernal in a place like Cinema Centenario was able to help us sell a number of copies of the books quite fast. So yung mga lessons na yan, when we did yung Pro Bernal Antibio, we took that to heart when we did naman yung first book that we published under our own imprint na Everything's Fine. This is yung first book of film criticism ni Richard Balisay called Break It To Me Gently. Initially, we were quite hesitant about the number of print run that we'll do kasi nga it's film criticism. Parang inisip namin who will be interested, di ba? Or who are the likely buyers. But we're actually quite surprised that we sold out our first print run in just 3 months. So at the very start nung book project with Bolisay, we knew that we wanted to set up our own online bookshop or our own e-commerce website. So pinag-aralan namin how to do that, how to set it up either in Squarespace or Shopify. Pinag-aralan namin paano yung mga payment methods, paano rin to do fulfillment, anong logistics delivery service provider, ang pinakamura for buyers, and mayroong enough reputation na hindi masisira yung libro during transit or madi-deliver siya talaga dun sa bumili. And then eventually we did that with everythingsfine.com. At that point, we were committed na we really just want to sell our books primarily through the website and then through other online platforms. We initially thought of still having the title in fully booked, but when we realized we inquired and we realized na negotiable pa rin yung 40% nila na consignment, we decided na it's not really for us. Kasi one of the goals ng Everything's Fine is to share equitably everything with the authors, meaning yung proceeds from sales 50-50 with the authors. So yung 40% is not really economical for us. And then plus, of course, you know where Filipino books get placed in fully booked. With community bookshops naman, there are some na medyo mataas din yung consignment rate, but eventually, siguro dahil may existing relationships kami with them, we're able to negotiate a very reasonably lower rate with them. Plus, we really support community bookshops, so as much as possible, we want all our titles to be in these bookshops. So sa ngayon, all our books are either in our website or in these community bookshops. And then, like everyone else doing self-publishing nowadays, we pre-sold yung Break It To Me Gently ni Richard Bulisay. Meaning, bago pa kami mag-imprenta, bago pa dalhin sa printer yung book, we were already selling it. And by the time the book arrived from the printer, we've raised enough funds to pay completely yung balance namin sa printer. With Break It To Me Gently, we did a book fair with the author. Kung may mga events that involves yung author, we were there to help sell yung title. Bulisay himself did sort of a book tour in UP, in Ateneo, in Puon Rudyard Library, in other film festivals. And then since the book was also co-sponsored in production with Q Cinema, we were also there to sell the books. Something that we've learned with Pro Bernal Antibio. So all of this contributed to making sure that we sold out yung first run ng book within just 3 months. So yun, when 2020 came in, and then we had our second run of Richard's book, and then we also added 3 more titles into our online bookshop, mostly books published earlier by Stuart Santiago Publishing. Basically, our online bookshop just only had 4 book titles. Every week, we were able to sell books naman online. And something we realized when we were doing this, we noticed na every time we do our social media post during paydays or near paydays, yung 15-30, nagpipik yung online sales namin. So, pagpasok ng 2020, we realized na we do a lot of we do more social media postings during this period kasi parang people have the money or the funds to buy books by that time. And then yun nga yung nangyayari. Magulat na lang kami when we check orders online. Marami siya during 15 and 30. We had several other plans with Richard Bulise's book. There was supposed to be a Calabarzon Film Festival and then this docu-film festival. Pero that got canceled when the pandemic hit. And then the country was placed in quarantine. So we weren't able to sell the books, our books. Plus, yung delivery service provider namin, they had to also cancel yung operations nila. When we resumed the Weber in May, we did something free shipping. Kasi hindi kami maka-move outside the city, and our books are based in Makati. Our inventory is in Makati. We tried to offer free shipping to our readers or buyers in Makati. We did that for the first month of May. Actually extended it until June. So kapag may mo-order na taga Makati and nililibre namin yung shipping. Pag nagbayad sila ng shipping, nire-refund namin in cash. I myself do the delivery. I go around by bike or by scooter in the city to deliver the books directly to the buyer as parang incentive for buying books from us during those period. Makati lang kasi hindi ka pwedeng lumabas to go to other cities. I tried doing that to go to Mandaluyong, pero pagdating doon sa border, I was told to go back. So yun. And then another thing that we realized during the quarantine is yung mga individual sellers in Facebook or Instagram. There was one seller who approached us and asked if he can sell a number of our books. And we agreed. Then we gave them the same consignment rate that we have with independent community bookshops. And to our surprise, in just 1 week, taubos lahat yung libro na pinadala namin sa kanya. So we realized na you can actually also partner with individuals doing sales online. You don't need to just partner with bookshops or institutions to sell yung books. May mga individuals out there could probably have the niche also to sell the books to the right buyers. Another thing that we did during the quarantine, I was part of this Publishers Without Borders kasi na Facebook group, and then I was reading a lot about mga posts nila on the Read Indie campaign in the US, and then how independent publishers in many countries from India to Canada are forming associations, and really realized bakit walang independent publishers association din sa Pilipinas, or small book publishers association sa Pilipinas. There's an academic book publishers association, textbook publishers association, you have BDAP, and yet there's no small publishers group. So we decided to reach out to other friends who are doing publishing literary titles, and we eventually decided to form yung Indie Publishers Collab as a means to share experiences and then help one another, and then maximize din yung opportunity to sell our respective books online. So June 12, Independence Day, we sort of announced na we are here, and we started an hashtag Read Indie PH campaign. And this campaign actually, sa us, on our part, sa Everything's Fine, actually also helped to push sales of our books. It also got us into connected to groups, groups of book reading clubs in Twitter. We started our Twitter account. For the longest time, wala kaming Twitter. We started a Twitter account, and then eventually, through the individual indie publishers collab, the group, we were able to connect with these book clubs and book readers associations in Twitter, and they themselves helped us promote yung aming sariling hashtag na Read Indie PH. Later, BDAP approached us with yung aklatan sa Shopee nung una. For certain political reasons, we decided not to join Shopee, pero we were keen on Lazada. So when BDAP invited us to join aklatan sa Lazada, we signed up immediately. And sa Lazada, we had a great experience selling our books through their platform. Medyo mataas lang yung learning curve. You have to read everything by yourself. You have to, Lazada will not, will just point you to the university, Lazada University, and then bahala ka mag-aral kung ano yung platform. Pero okay naman siya in the end. Kasi during the aklatan sa Lazada days, we were able to sell a significant number of our books. And then something that we realized with aklatan sa Lazada, we were able to sell a lot of our book bundles. We wanted to do book bundles for the longest time. We were actually thinking of doing parang, there are other people kasi doing parang subscription in a box, where the book is bundled or with other books or with other items. Pero with Lazada, we just wanted to try out parang just a bundle. Since we just have 4 books, easy to bundle them into 3. One is history, one is film, and then everything. We actually sold a number of these bundles through Lazada. So when we joined the Manila Book Fair, we tried to make sure that we have one of these bundles there. I think people are, pag makita nila may discount, it kind of helps to push yung sales. So, ito yung so far, yung aming mga experiences with doing sales primarily online. Right now, we're trying to look at other platforms. We're trying to just balance it kasi as it is we only have one person doing fulfillment for all book orders. Pero we really wanted to go into other platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and then Grab. We actually already applied with GrabMart, and we're hoping na after we get approved by Grab. Kasi this would mean you can just order our books through the Grab app. And then next year we also plan to do other than virtual events, kasi we haven't done any. We're planning to do virtual events, and then maybe we could also do a book subscription plan. So we announced yung titles namin for next year. We're doing something called misreadings, which republishing sort of what we call lost essays or essential readings from authors like Rolando Pino or Ishmael Bernal, previously published works pero medyo underrated. We just wanted to bring them back. We're thinking of doing a subscription plan for something like that. Ayun po. That's the end of my presentation, and I hope nakatulong ito na magbigay ng idea sa inyo. Salamat.
Wow. Yeah, it's a very concise and a very how do you call that? You're speaking largely from experience, and I'm sure maraming natutunan ang mga nakikinig sa atin. In fact, we do have some questions already, but we'll be answering them after our last speaker, no, Padma, no? Okay, so thank you very much, Oliver. Maraming salamat, no? And good luck. So, coming right up is our next panelist, Miss Padma Perez. Padma, are you ready?
Hi. Okay.
It's yours. You may.
I'm going to share my screen.
Great.
Let's see. Okay, and there we go. And here. Okay. The weird thing is that I can't see you, but I'll just talk through this. So right now I'm in Baguio City. I'm inside Mount Cloud Bookshop. Behind me, you can see our lessons not learned section, which is where we put it's what we call our history and social sciences section in Mount Cloud Bookshop. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we survived and are trying to continue to survive and stay afloat during the pandemic. It was nice to hear from Oliver kasi syempre we carry also their books, and I can attest to the speed with which Richard Bodisai's book flew off the shelves. One of the things about doing business in Baguio as a bookseller is everyone in Baguio experiences a downtime. All businesses in Baguio go through a downtime during the rainy season. Siguro pag tag-ulan, wala na masyadong lumalabas, nakakatamad lumabas dito sa Baguio. And also, wala masyadong bisita, no? So, na dumarating. So, and what happened during the pandemic is the whole year became downtime. So, pero I think we were prepared for this in some ways kasi before I think we've been doing this now for at least 5 years or 6 years, the Mount Cloud Bookshop subscriptions. And this is a way for people to get to know books outside their reading comfort zone. So you fill in a form, you tell us something about your interests or what you want to read, and then our team selects books for you from our shelves. And as everyone knows, our books here are 90% Filipiniana. That's our push, is to carry mainly Filipino literature. And so it's also a way for people to get to know different genres, I guess, in Philippine lit. So this year we launched different levels: Make Cumulus Cloud 9, Stratus Cloud, Cirrus Cloud, and those are different budget brackets, but also you get a different number of books, or you get different freebies with it, or different services. And so we designed this subscription package when we realized there had to be a way to continue to sell books even during our low season. So nung nangyari yung pandemic tsaka yung lockdown, and we couldn't open the shop and people couldn't come to the shop anymore, we really relied on the subscription packages. And thankfully people as soon as we could come to the shop, our staff, our team could come to the shop and fulfill orders. This is one of the things that helped us stay afloat. Also, gumawa kami ng mga virtual book browsing on Facebook. So one of our team members, si Renz, nagtsaga siya na to try and recreate that feeling you have when you're able to pull a book off a shelf and flip through the pages. And well, one of the things we observed is people like to smell the pages of books when they open them. So yun lang yung hindi namin maibigay dito sa virtual bookshelf browsing na ginawa ni Renz. So this is the comic shelf we're showing you. But it got challenging to do that. So, and nakakahilo pala siyang panoorin. So gumawa na lang kami ng albums na ganito sa Facebook where we posted all the titles on our shelves, no, by section. So this is the Cordillera shelf that you're showing. And again, this also really helped us, and it helped our customers as well to see what we're offering in the bookshop. So yun yung isa sa mga ginawa namin. And malaking tulong na we feel like as an independent bookshop, we get to know the publishers that like Oliver, Everything's Fine, and many other indie publishers. We get to know the authors on a personal basis and as friends. And we really came to feel when lockdown came that we had a community of writers and publishers that were ready to support the bookshop. So I want to shout out kay Edgar Calabia Samar. He did this great thing for us when we were finally able to reopen. He announced on Twitter that he was going to buy books, 25 books for 25 Filipino students who needed or would like to purchase a Filipiniana book from Mount Cloud Bookshop. And ang bilis, no? So many students and young people wrote to him requesting books that were available here in Mount Cloud Bookshop, and he sponsored that. And what happened also was to make the most of the shipping of the books from Baguio. A lot of the young people that he bought books for also added to their orders and paid for that themselves. So that also gave us a boost under lockdown. That kind of support from authors that have a large following and who want to support bookshops. It helps us a lot when authors tweet or post on Facebook or Instagram about their books here with us. So while we've always been focused on building a community around Mount Cloud Bookshop and creating a social life for the books that we carry here, we really felt that the presence and support of that community when the pandemic hit, and we hope that we can continue to rely on that. But more than just talking about Mount Cloud, I want to talk about other independent bookshops who have also been very creative since lockdown started. And one of them, of course, is Savage Mind in Naga, Savage Mind Art Books and Cinema. And like Oliver said, they also created book bundles of books. But the interesting thing is you purchase this book bundle and proceeds go to community building operations for indigenous communities now affected by Typhoon Rolly. And another thing that Savage Mind did when the lockdown started was they partnered with Community Mart. It's an app where you can do your groceries through local stores, and Savage Mind was one of the shops there. So this was because Christian Cordero pushed for books as essentials during the pandemic. And we felt also in Baguio that this was something we should have done to push really for books as essentials. And I'll get to that later. We're now part of a community hub, and one of our neighbors here on the hub, behind Bar's bike shop, they were able to open earlier than anybody else because bikes were recognized as essential during lockdown. So, ang ganda ng example ng Savage Mind, no, na while finding ways to keep the business running and keep books moving off the shelves, they're also extending their community beyond the immediate readership or literary community. No? They're also reaching out. And I think this is because we're very, as independent bookshops, we feel very much that we belong to a place also. So Mount Cloud Bookshop is very much a Baguio place, and Savage Mind is very much a Naga place also. And because we feel like we belong here in the places we are, we want our work to extend beyond just book selling and to serve also the communities that we live with. So this is Savage Mind. I haven't been there. The photos, with Christian's permission, I got them from Savage Mind's Facebook page. And this is really the thing. Despite the pandemic and 3 typhoons, we will continue to serve Bicol and the world. And I really love that spirit, and it resonates with us also here in Baguio. So that's Savage Mind, no? Next, I want to talk about Quago. Some of you are familiar, who are listening, are familiar with Komura, which was a gathering of different storytellers and artists and creatives to support one another, and also, of course, to showcase our work. And Quago was also a pop-up bookshop for a while in Warehouse 8. But and then they moved to Bangkal. But just when they moved to Bangkal, again, the pandemic hit us, and they were not able to really get operations going in Bangkal as a collaborative space and as a bookshop. So very interesting sa akin yung evolution ng Quago. And this is something they're doing now to raise funds. So they're shifting now from selling books. They've decided to become a non-stock, non-profit organization dedicated to research and development, and combining in their work print, because they really believe in the importance of print, but also they're bravely exploring the world of technology as a way to get ideas in print to different communities at affordable prices. So they're now in the midst of a 6-month-long fundraising program with many gatherings and events taking place. And one of the things they're doing are book blind dates. So eto siya, no? You can buy a blind date, a book blind date. You won't know what book exactly you're getting, but there are some clues here. Again, these photos are from Quago's Facebook page, and I have them with permission from Saika to Maliwan. So the book blind dates is also something we tried out for Valentine's Day in Mount Cloud Bookshop in the past. And it's a fun way to surprise people with books. And what we always used to say during Valentine's was that books outlast bouquets. So they're a better gift than flowers or chocolates. The other thing that Quago is doing is they are developing a Raspberry Pi, which is the smallest, a very small and low-cost computer. And they're putting in learning modules for a community in the Visayas. So again, we see the reaching out of the work, or extending of the work beyond being booksellers to really serving communities and finding ways for books to reach beyond our immediate communities, or beyond the people who come into the shop or who come to look for us on social media to look for books. Oh, and I forgot to mention, one of the fun things that Savage Mind did was on Nora Honor's birthday in May. Noranians donated funds to buy books from Savage Mind, which Savage Mind then distributed to communities in Bicol. So that's Mount Cloud and Savage Mind and Quago. Not to toot our own horn at Mount Cloud, but I also wanted to share other very creative ways of getting books off shelves and into people's hands and homes. One thing I wanted to touch on is, and this is an example, is also how now that we're in this situation where we're isolated from each other, our gatherings happen like this, we see each other on screens, we make new friends on screens, and we try to grow new relationships on screens. How do we create books and during a pandemic? And for most of the year, I've been working on this book with co-editors Rehanna Rousseau and Alexandra Walter and Renato Constantino. Harvest Moon is an anthology of poems and stories and photographs from around Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And it's a literary anthology on climate change. And one of the things we kept talking about is how do we move this book in the face of crisis. Firstly, we're telling stories about the crisis, but how do we get people to keep believing in the importance of a book like this? This just shows you some of the countries that are represented in the book and some of the beautiful lines that are in the book. And this Harvest Moon is a sequel to Agam, Filipino Narratives on Uncertainty and Climate Change. And one of the key things that we felt would help everyone, not just us, to move this book is, like Oliver said, to talk about it in different venues, not just in the usual spaces where we talk about books and where we talk about climate change. So through these two books, we're kind of doing this, creating this two-way traffic of ideas and books and stories where we're trying to get stories and poetry and art into the circles where climate science is discussed, where climate policy is discussed, but we're also trying to create a bridge through those stories with the people who experience the worst of climate change. So in the future, we're looking to print another edition, hopefully, of this book, and Harvest Moon will be coming out in 2021. So abangan nyo po ito. But the other thing we're doing also as a means to bring books into another space, and this is not necessarily original, but I think it's still creative, is we talk to the authors that contributed to Agam Filipino Narratives and to Harvest Moon. And we have a podcast where we talk to authors about how they're dealing with the climate crisis, how they're writing about it, and what are their feelings on the role of art and storytelling in dealing with the multiple uncertainties and crises we're facing today. So this is not book selling per se, but it's still a way of driving literature on different platforms and of also making it relevant to communities beyond the book buyers, but also the communities that are affected by the things that we write about and the things that we love as lovers of literature. So yon, to close, I'll talk a little bit about how our community is growing in Mount Cloud Bookshop. So this is our new home here in Baguio. We moved last year, and that's part of the difficulty we're experiencing from a small space in Casa Vallejo that was just 32 square meters. Suddenly, we're occupying a whole house with a garden. So we have cohabitants now with us. One of them is Behind Bars Bike Shop that I mentioned earlier, and another is Hot Cat Specialty Coffee downstairs. And as I'm speaking to you, sometimes naririnig ko yung coffee machine nila making a nice hot cup of coffee. And VV Stop Baguio is a very interesting and exciting place. They are a creativity accelerator for kids. So they have a 3D printing machine. They have all kinds of craft materials. They have a hot press for hot transfers to cloth. There's art making materials, and kids can come here for free to work with the materials that are available in VV Stop Baguio. So it's free to all kids, and they can just come here and spend their time making things. So by bringing together these cohabitants, we're trying to extend our community as a means also of placing books within this space where biking matters, creativity matters, but also we can just sit back and sip a nice hot cup of coffee. So for our friends in Baguio who are hearing this today, we're open, we're carefully observing physical distancing and safety measures. These are ours, and yung mga wala dito ngayon, hopefully in the future we'll all be able to see each other here so you can experience and enjoy this hub that we're creating in Baguio. So yun, that's it for my sharing today.
All right. Wow. You're all over the place, Padma. So, not only Baguio, you're in Bicol and all of these things. So, anyway, as promised, we do have some questions for both of you, and we will be reading some of them at this point. So, all right, the first one is hold on. Okay. This is from Miss BB Monkey, and she says, I want to open my own bookstore too. I also want to self-publish, but sometimes I see my dreams as overwhelming. It's too much. So what can you suggest or advise to a young monkey like me? So how do I start? Thanks. So yeah, there you go. And any one of you, she's looking for advice on how to start a bookstore and also
I would say
self-publish.
just do it, because that's what we did. And we used to joke na opening Mount Cloud Bookshop was a dream come true. And then 2 weeks into the operation, we realized nightmare pala siya. Pero I mean, don't be afraid of your dreams. BB Monkey, this is our second time to be together. Sabi mo gusto mo rin maging anthropologist paglaki mo. Dami mong gustong gawin. Which is great. I think that's great. I confess, all we had when we started was a love of books. Wala kaming alam tungkol sa industry. But the other thing we had when we started were friends who were willing to give us advice, friends in the publishing world, authors who were willing to give us advice and who encouraged us to start this adventure. So I can't stress enough how having a community really helped us. And now we're seeing new kinds of communities evolve because now of the situation, and I'm curious to see how these communities will grow if and when we get a vaccine. What's going to happen? Are people going to start coming to bookshops again? Maybe we're also going to see more individual booksellers like the one Oliver described earlier. I know I follow them on Instagram and Facebook also, and I'm so intrigued because they get great titles, and I buy from them also. So yeah, pursue those dreams. Just do it. Find supporters, find allies, build a community around your dreams to support you in that. And I think if your intention is to serve a community, then that community will form around you to uphold you also.
Great. Thank you, Padma. Oliver, you wanna chime in?
Yeah, I just want to add, if you really are passionate about a certain thing, just, yun nga, sabi nga ni Padma, just do it. Kasi if you really love what you do, whatever difficulty or problems you encounter, it will be all worth it. And then in the process, you learn things from it. Today, sa panahon na to, we're basically online all the time. There are, sabi nga ni Padma, communities are essential nowadays. And there are online communities, even for self-publishers. You can just search Facebook and then you'll end up with a number of different groups that are doing self-publishing. And from there, you'll be able to learn a lot of tips on how you can publish your own book. It may be printed, it may not necessarily be printed, kasi a lot of times consideration talaga yung budget. It's not cheap to produce a book. So if budget is a problem, you can probably opt to do an ebook. And yung isang partner namin sa Indie Publishers Collab, yung Kasing Press, they just focus on doing ebooks, and they're doing quite good in selling their titles.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Oliver. And we do have a follow-up question to that, no? From Natanya Shai Du. Is there an indie bookstore association? Because I do believe we have an independent publishers association. I mean, but an independent. What about an independent bookstore association? Is there one? She says she reps Ikaduhang Andana in Dumaguete City, and she'd love to learn from other indie bookstores as well. Do you know of anything, Padma?
Call me. Wala pa. Wala pa sa Pilipinas, and kami sa Mount Cloud, we've been watching indie booksellers in the UK and the US, just to see what they're doing and see how we can build an association or a network like that, because we know the struggle is real, and we feel like we could really benefit from mutual support among indie booksellers across the country, because we want to see more independent bookshops in the Philippines. And there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot to be gained. So I think this, like when I was putting together my notes for today, that was something I had in mind, because what I did was I called up Christian in Naga and said, "Oh, kumusta?" And I asked him, what did you do so that I could share about Savage Mind on today. So, and then I reached out to Saika because I know of Quago. But see, I didn't know, and it's my loss that I didn't know about Ikadahong Andana in Dumaguete. My gosh, it's Dumaguete, for crying out loud. How could I not know? But so this is, in fact, we wanted, at one point, we were talking about bringing indie booksellers together. There was a year that, correct me if I'm wrong, Annie, I know you're listening, if it was BDAP or NBDB that organized the indie bookshop tour. And that was great, no? So a group of people, they registered for this, and they traveled to different indie bookshops in Luzon. And I think that was one of the first times that we felt connected to each other in a way. And we really feel that we should get together at Mount Cloud, because I think many of us are not when we start, we're not big industry players. We're not very experienced. What I know of indie bookshops in the Philippines is we start because we are passionate about books, and then we have to learn the business as we're going along. And if those of us who already have some knowledge and experience can share that with those who want to start, I think that would be great, and we can exchange ideas. So definitely, yes, we should form one. And I'll use this platform to invite Natalia and Natanya, and other friends. Let's reach out to each other. Send us a message on Mount Cloud Bookshop on Facebook, and sige na, let's get this going. Let's start it na.
Great. Oh, of course. Oh, yan, merong positive concrete action, no, out of these presentations. Yes, we do have a couple more questions here. I guess this one is addressed to Sir Oliver. Good morning po. Question po, in selling books in Lazada platform, as mentioned by Sir Oliver, I am a self-published author and I usually do the selling and marketing of books on my own. Do they require certain business permits for me to start selling? Thank you. There, that's the question.
No, in fact, kami, medyo na-stop yung process na ng business registration permit namin because of the quarantine. So until now, we haven't really finished yung business registration namin. But we were able to sign up with Lazada kasi hindi naman siya requirement. You can sign up as an individual seller, but just note that part of the deal with Lazada is you have to become a member of the seller's cooperative. So as an individual seller, they will ask a certain identification as requirement for joining Lazada and for joining the co-op. So it's not needed. You don't have to have a business registered to be able to sell in Lazada.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yung previous question, kasi something na pinag-usapan din namin before we did, before we formed the Indie Publishers Collab is how do we connect them with the independent bookstores in the country? Maybe something that we can also discuss with the indie bookshops like Cloud and ikaduhang ng Nina Natanya. We got connected with Natanya through BDAP's aklatan sa Lazada actually. I'm saying this kasi in the US during the quarantine, lumabas sa news yung bookshop.org, and I'm not sure if you've heard about it. It emerged as something na parang a big competitor of Amazon.com, even parang outselling Amazon at some point. And yung platform ng bookshop.org is a platform that connects this small community bookshops all over the US. So maybe that's something that we could probably do in the future together with the indie bookshops.
Great. Okay, very good. Oh, that's something we'll definitely push for that. That's something we could all work on, no? So anyway, well, we do have time for one more question because I think our time is upcoming. We have a 12 o'clock. Hold on. One last question is, where's that one? There you go. It's also from BB Monkey. I am also a Filipiniana collector and enthusiast. However, there's a discussion within the community on what Filipiniana really means. What constitutes Filipiniana? So, well, this one, how do we interpret Retana and Medina's definitions? So, Padma, you wanna share your thoughts on that one? What constitutes Filipiniana? Okay, and what?
Okay, the last part of the question is like a thesis question. But I will say for Mount Cloud Bookshop, we're, I guess the word I'm looking for is generalist when it comes to Filipiniana, because we want to distribute and support as widely as possible. So we count as Filipiniana books published here in the Philippines, written by Filipino authors. But we're also, and so that means we have as well books in Ilocano, books in Bisaya. We carry books from Bicol as well. So, you know, we're aware, but of all the debates around what's Filipiniana, who writes Filipiniana, what language, you know, if you write in English, is that Filipiniana? But we, as an indie bookshop that wants to just encourage reading and encourage people to discover the wealth of ideas and talent and stories and research that's being done in the Philippines, we, you know, we don't, we try not to exclude on the basis of these debates. I think as a bookshop, our role is to make these books available across the board, and it's for readers to discern that. I may have my personal opinions on that, based also on debates with friends and colleagues and on readings. But as a bookshop, our role is to just make them available to our communities, make the books available, and let readers make that distinction for themselves. It gets interesting when we start thinking about what about books on the Philippines by Filipino writers published in the US, for example, in the UK, and we do carry those books. Is that Filipiniana? I mean, for us, I think the question is not, we don't want to say it's not Filipiniana, because that book may have something to tell us about who we are as well. So that's my answer. I didn't really answer your question because I don't, I think there's no final answer to a question like that. This is something we can and should continue to debate. See, Oliver, I'm sure may, has something more to say.
Yes, Oliver.
I'll just leave that to the anthropologist. I can answer that. So.
All right then. So I think that was well, it's about time that we wrap up this panel discussion. Yes.
Can I make one last quick point?
Sure. Please.
It still relates to that question, and I think it relates also to larger debates on what's literature, what's hard literature, and what's just bubble gum. Honestly, we get impatient with that kind of debate here in Mount Cloud Bookshop, because if people want to pick up a zine and read that, that's great. If somebody wants to make a zine, and there's so many people making zines now as a way to get stories across creatively, that's great. And that's, for us, that's Filipiniana. It's homemade. It's made by somebody here, somebody who experiences life here, and that's their story. So that's my 2 cents na pahabol. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, very well taken. So I guess that's a wrap for all of us. I'd like to thank both of you, Padma and Oliver, for sharing your insights and your experiences. Very, very helpful. And at this point, I'd like to thank once again our partners in this pandemic playbook, the BDAP Lit Fest. Of course, thank you to NBDB, the National Book Development Board, Happy Toothpaste, Daz Dishwashing Liquid, and Prime Trade. And also, we'd like to invite everyone to visit the MIBF online. By the way, if you guys have books that are on sale at the MIBF, both of you, then please let us know so we can help you, push it, okay? So once again, we'd like to invite everyone to visit the MIBF online, get big discounts on the best books. And That's it. Thank you so much, Oliver, Padma, and this is Toots Policarpio saying thank you, everyone. Goodbye, and keep safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you around.